Hello, everyone. Welcome so much to all of you, and thank you for being here. I am Katie from the Single Mama Club. If you've not met me before and you haven't been in my corner of the internet, welcome. I've been in the family sector for 25 years. I'm a qualified single parent coach dealing with high conflict individuals. I've got my Single Mama Academy, and I can already see loads of my Academy clients here listening. Welcome to everyone. Now, my goal with the Alliance is that you guys, everyone who has bought a ticket, everyone who's going to watch on the replays, can have the brilliance of all of the expertise sat in front of you here in one space. Because everyone that you see here has a huge following and is a brilliant expert. I've only pulled together the people that really resonate with the mission. So, the flow of how we're going to do things is very much each expert will tail off and dovetail really beautifully with the next one. Now, unfortunately, Dr. Charlotte Proudman has had to cancel because she is snowed under with her Love Island clients, who she is currently representing, unfortunately. And Dr. Jess Taylor has had to go in for emergency dental surgery today. Very disappointing, very disappointing. However, I may have, I should have, and I'm keeping a very close eye on the participant list. There might be a celebrity panelist coming on, but she is super busy. And she was like, if I can join and I can come in and do a quick Q&A, then I absolutely will. So if I happen to spot her, I'm going to admit her, and then I'm just going to gently and very politely pause whoever is speaking. Hopefully, it will be me, and then I won't feel absolutely awful against all these beautiful women. And then we're going to fire at some Q&A at this wonderful lady. If she doesn't join, I will tell you guys at the end who it is. But at the moment, I want to just keep it secret because she hasn't actually said that she will definitely be here, but she said she will absolutely try her best. So a wealth of information will come out from everyone who you see here, as well as this person who is going to join, hopefully going to join. So, first off, you've got me. So I was just saying to the ladies before we joined, of course, I've had technical issues. My academy people will tell you there is always technical issues on every masterclass, workshop. We do weekly meetings every Wednesday. There's always something, isn't there, guys? So let me just pull up all of my bits here and then we will get started. So, my topic tonight, and you might have seen on my stories, I wanted to put it to you guys about what it was that you would like to hear me speak about, because where I deal with families, high conflict, and I've got such a strong background in childcare, I can do kind of a good blend of everything. So, my blend is your detachment is their healing, because as much as we will always put ourselves last and our children first, put a one in the comments if that is absolutely true. If it means that our children get the better of us and get whatever we can give them first, we will absolutely put ourselves last. But the reality is that you cannot offer your child and your children the very best version of everything that you want to offer them if you are absolutely broken inside and you are still very much connected to that person that has caused you all of this hurt and harm, and for you to be in the situation that you're in now. So, as I said, tonight we're talking about two topics that are often treated as separate, but I don't believe that they're separate at all. I believe that they are the same journey because, like I said, the truth is that you cannot fully protect your children whilst you're still emotionally tethered to the person who hurt you. So, what I want my part of tonight to be about is that you need to absolutely flip your mindset about everything that you feel your ex has a hold over you with regards to. I need you to realize that in everything that you believe is holding you back, is tethering you to them, is absolutely possible to sever, detach from, and break away from, so that you can still co parent with this person, but they don't have to impact you anymore. It is absolutely possible. So, many women believe that they should be over it by now. But what we talk about so much in my academy is the ripple effect. It's that this just isn't a situation where, for example, like my story, my husband had an affair. My twins were only just turned 2. And I never in 1,000 years, after doing IVF as well, thought that I would ever be in this type of situation. And I know for a lot of these people that end up doing what they do to cause the breakdown of their family, they really do hope that water will just wash under the bridge. We'll forget about it, the dust will settle, and then we can kind of establish some kind of co parenting. But the reality is, the safe parent, you guys, because trust me, anyone who is not a safe parent is not sat here and has not booked tickets to take part in this event. I absolutely, in my bones, believe that. But where we are the safe parent, we're constantly dealing with the fallout with the children because now our children are robbed essentially of the family dynamic that we always wanted for them. And that I'm 4.5 years down the line and I am still dealing with it today. And that is what I mean by the ripple effect, because we're constantly still dealing with it. So, this is why so many single parents, single mamas in particular, get labeled as bitter because they think that we just can't let it go. We think that we should be over it by now. But it's not that at all. It's that we are still really, really struggling to come to terms with the fact that this person has damaged our children's family so badly. And now our children have to live with that forever. So, what I want to also acknowledge is the fact that you never planned on things being this way. And I 100% get it. It wasn't supposed to be this way. And that feeling and that hurt needs time and it needs space to actually live and breathe because it's within that that you start to make your peace with it. It will never be okay for you. It will never be okay for me. But what I don't want you guys to be doing is constantly living with this really poisonous resentment because it's very easy to do that because this is our babies that we're talking about. What I want you guys to do is accept it, know that it has nothing to do with you, that the decisions that they made, the choices that they made, it's got nothing to do with you whatsoever, and that this is all about them, their needs, their selfishness, everything in between. And the fallout is just a byproduct of that. Now, what I want to do is we're talking about why it feels so hard. I'm just looking at my notes here. I don't like to completely read off all of my notes. I like to ad lib a little bit. But what I also want you to realize is that you guys have essentially been groomed, conditioned to never upset this person, to always agree with them, to make sure that their way is the right way and that we will just abide by it. And of course, when we're now in this dynamic where our children, the standard of care maybe isn't as what it should be, they're deliberately doing things because it serves them and our children take the hit. That means that we have to act. We have to talk to these people. We have to address it with them, which is often where we are labeled as high conflict. Now, part of my job and in my academy more so is to show you guys that you have to ground yourself in the knowledge. Knowledge is power. That you're not just being bitter and making mountains out of molehills and picking holes in everything. You need to know absolutely that where you're coming from is from a space of safeguarding your children. You're doing it for their benefit. And that's why I bring amazing people into my academy, like Elise, who's sat here, Family Court Navigator, to help really anchor us in to what does good welfare look like in the eyes of the court? What can we address? What maybe do we just need to sit back and document? And if it continues to be a pattern, then we can address it. All of these really small nuances to the whole journey of what I like to call the long game, because this whole dynamic is the long game. This is what we're playing with these people. You need to sit back, document, and really have full trust that time will tell. This is something we were just talking about last week, I think, in our academy meeting, in that time is honestly going to reveal everything. And the goal is, and what I help you guys to do, is get in front of that judge with nothing to answer for. No bad behavior, no maliciousness, no alienation, no nothing. That's the goal. And that's the long game. And that is very difficult when you have a high conflict individual who is trying every which way by hoovering, by Darvo, smear campaigns, false emergencies, manufactured um, allegations, all of this. I know, and all of the professionals here know what it is that you're actually dealing with. Some of the things that I hear in my strategy calls and in my academy, they're so insidious. Some of them are outright blatant abuse, but some are very, very insidious, very covert, not easily detected by the average person. But everyone here knows exactly what it is that you're dealing with. So I need you guys to tactically detach. And this is one of the concepts I teach most often because detachment is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean ignoring concerns and becoming passive and pretending that everything's okay and burying your head in the sand. It means that you are emotionally unavailable for the chaos whilst remaining strategically aware of what requires action. You stop reacting, you start responding, you stop chasing, you start documenting, you stop arguing, you start preparing, you stop trying to convince them, and you start protecting your energy. And you become intentional instead of reactive. Now, one of my main things that I teach is Jade. Okay. It's exploded over social media recently, which is fantastic because the more people it reaches, the better. It wasn't even me that made it. I will never, ever, ever claim that. I heard it years ago, about, God, 5, 6 years ago. And Jade stands for we do not justify, we do not argue, we do not defend, and we do not explain. Because in that, we give ammo. That's the easiest way I can explain it to you guys. And I used to teach this to my academy members back in the early days when I first started the Single Mama Club. And we're all single parents. We're all dealing with everything. We're business owners. We're crazy busy. It was difficult for people to learn, which is why I made Safe Send. So if you haven't heard what Safe Send is, it's my co-parenting response generator. I have programmed it. It has my brains inside it to keep you grey rock, yellow rock, jade, child focused, and court safe. So you can literally put in there, I hate my ex and I don't want to give him the children this weekend and I want to do this and blah, blah, blah. And it will spit out the court safe, child focused, correct response to make sure that you still answer the logistical messages that you need to exchange with this co-parent, but you don't feed into all of the chaos that they want to bring to your door. Because the ultimate goal of these people is for them to know that they affect you. That's all they want to do. And because we're not in a relationship with them anymore, it's obviously going to be negatively because they can't really impact us positively. It brings them nothing now. So, what I need you to do is tactically detach. Safe Send is a great, great way of doing that. It's easy if it's a shortcut. But if you don't want to do the shortcut, you need to learn Jade. You need to look back through all of your messages and think, when have I justified? When have I argued? Have I defended? And when have I over explained? Because the reality is we're human. And if someone is labeling wrong accusations at us or trying to paint a new narrative, we want to defend ourselves. That's totally normal. That's a human response. But where we're dealing with someone who is very high conflict, has narcissistic tendencies, this is where they will claw up all of the info and they will use whatever they can in the moment. And then other bits of info, they'll put it in their back pocket and you can be guaranteed that they will be keeping that ready to use at a later date. Now, as I start to wrap up, I want to talk about the invisible labor. And I really want to acknowledge everyone here because I know that this is one of the most painful realities for any single parent that is carrying the invisible labor, the appointments, the medication, the school communications, the therapy, the emotional support, the routines, the plan and the recovery, the mental load, the house, everything, whilst at the same time being criticized by someone who is carrying a fraction of the responsibility. And if that resonates with you guys, drop a 1 in the comments because I need you to know that the work you are doing matters, even when nobody sees it. Okay. Especially when nobody sees it. Because when you're part of a community like this, everyone here who is listening to my voice right now will know exactly what you're dealing with. And there's sisterhood in that. There's friendship in that. And I need you guys to all know that those moments where you're hanging, you're just done, the kids are being nightmares, you've got a million things on your list to do, and everything just feels so overwhelming. And then you get a text criticizing you from the ex. I need you to know that everyone here gets it. We really, really do. So, my final note for you before I move on to the beautiful Christine is that knowledge is power. You've got the abundance of professionals now in this space. This is a really, this niche is exploding at the moment. And here in front of you, you have some amazing professionals. Knowledge is power. I need you guys, as my final message to you, to become obsessed with finding the answers. That's what I did. I remember having my ex really trigger me on the doorstep at a handover. I would never, ever, ever bite with him. And the one time I did bite, he looked me right in my eyes. I'm going to look at the camera as I do this. And he went, "Yes, I got her to bite." And he was so happy about that. And I thought, that is the last time you're going to get that from me. And then I went on a rampage. I was like, there has to be a way. There has to be a way that I could communicate with this person, but I don't let him trigger me. There has to be a way. There has to be. And so I went on a mission for the next 2 years, trying literally everything. And then I ended up with my what I now call is my emotionally bulletproof method, which is I've trademarked it. It's mine. It works. I teach it in my academy because it is absolutely possible. And what I'm going to do is in the chat, please fire off any questions to me or to any of the professionals that you see here, because they're going to be lurking around. Some of them have to dash off, some of them are joining later. But if you've got a question, pop it in the chat now for the professional that you want to ask. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be dropping a really, really juicy offer for you guys to come and join me inside my academy, because this is like, I want you to think of the Alliance as like the pre-drinks, and what we do in the academy is like the after party. And it's a 12-month container, because if you want to change your shit with everything to do with this, you need at least a year, because this is like learning a new language when you're getting emotionally bulletproof and learning how to communicate. It is life changing, but you need time to change your life. So, on that note, thank you so much for being here with me. I hope you enjoyed my little spiel. And now I'm going to hand over to the beautiful Christine, who I'm so thrilled is here because I've followed her for ages. And now I get to actually hear it in the flesh. So, Christine, over to you. Oh, you're just on mute, my darling.
Thank you so much for having me. What a beautiful room of protective mamas. That's what I'm looking at right here, is all of you trying to do the very best you can to protect your children. And it brings a little, like, gets me a little bit mushy lots of times when I think about, I've been there, the hard work that you all are doing every single day to manage all of this. So I just want to just like pause for a moment and acknowledge that you are doing the hardest work there is on the planet. This is harder than anything because you are trying to parent children and navigate quote unquote co-parenting in a world that doesn't acknowledge the harm that's happening, doesn't acknowledge the harm that happened to you, and certainly does not acknowledge the harm that's happening actively with your children. So I applaud you for all the hard work you're doing, and I appreciate being here. So I am just going to try to, I actually have a 12-hour training that I do with court professionals, therapists, lawyers, guardian ad litems, custody evaluators, advocates, and some protective parents take it too. But virtually everyone who takes my training is someone who is a protective parent and doing professional work. Because I think the answer to all of these problems, right, is that we infiltrate the system. The only way the system's going to change, we can keep saying we have to dismantle family court, we need to call out coercive controllers, we need to do all of these things. The only way it's going to change is if the system itself is flipped over with good people who have integrity. It's not to say people doing the work don't have integrity, but many, unfortunately, if you read my book, Framed, Woman in the Family Court Underworld, many do not have integrity. And they are working off a system that has a bunch of networks. There's money to be made in the system. We all know that. Dr. Ramani, a dear friend of mine, wrote the prologue to our book, Framed, and she calls it the divorce industrial complex. So this was all planned by a system, and your abuse was planned by an abuser. It was planned. It's willful, it's active, it's intentional. And I don't mean to be hyperbolic. People tell me I'm a little dramatic. I'm like, work with every single protective mother I work with. It's not hyperbolic. That's the reality. You are perfect prey. You probably are highly agreeable, overall, conscientious. You work hard to fix things. That's what most of us do. And that's abusers are drawn towards us because they wish they were like us. And because we also are a trophy to them. We make them shine brighter, right? And so, what do we know about coercive control? And I want to be really clear. There's a lot of people who call it hidden abuse. It's not hidden abuse. Coercive control very often is physically violent, sexually violent, but abusers don't show up with a sign. If you listen to my TEDx, I am an abuser. They don't have a sign. And anybody who's sitting here in shame, guess what? You get to let it go because I was with my partner for 35 years and I was teaching on this subject every semester to college social work students. I'm a therapist. I've been an advocate for the same domestic violence sexual assault agency for 35 years, not anymore, but I did it for 35 years since the age of 19. The reality is they're really good at what they do. They're really good at it. And most of us are really trusting. And we believe the best of people. We do not look at a glass and say it's half empty. We look at a glass and say it's half full. And we keep trying and trying and trying, and we can call that the trauma bond for sure. But the reality is we are loyal to a fault. And the abuser knew this about us. I always say we don't enter into these relationships like it doesn't have to be a beautiful castle. But when you met this abuser, it felt really good. Most of us. There's a couple people here and there who they're like, oh my gosh, I'm running for the hills right away. They got it. Like right away, the abuser showed their true colors. But most of us walk into these relationships thinking we're walking into our idea of a castle. It doesn't have to be beautiful, right? It could be the greenhouse that we love, right? It doesn't matter. And over time, abusers erode away our autonomy, our agency, our voice. The castle becomes a cage. And we get smaller and smaller and smaller. So there's a lot of myths out there about therapists will even say this. You'll go to therapy and your therapist will be like, well, you're codependent. Or you need to do more. Oh, I heard that from many therapists. Christine, if you just maybe didn't run 3 times a week, maybe just run twice a week. Like I was made to change who I was to accommodate him more. I was gaslit by therapists. How many in here have been gaslit by therapists, right? And so what happens is this abuser knows that we want things to work. So the cage gets smaller. And it's not that we were codependent entering into the castle, whatever it was, the beautiful greenhouse, right? With dahlias everywhere. It doesn't matter what it was. What happens is we become codependent. Now be very clear. I'm not calling you codependent. I'm suggesting someone made you become that. Someone took away your identity. As Dr. Stark would say, it's a liberty crime. Coercive control takes away your freedom. And this is different than narcissists. We have a little habit of calling these people narcissists. And frankly, for every one of the protective mothers that I work with, and I do have some protective dads, for every single one of these people, these are not just narcissists. As a matter of fact, Dr. Ramani and I are doing a training out in California in the fall to help therapists understand the difference between someone who's a narcissist, like her amazing book, It's Not You. That deals, like if you think of a spectrum 1 through 10, like she helps the four, fives, and sixes. My clientele are dealing with the tens, and that is narcissism, Machiavellianism, ability to really manipulate everyone, including maybe your sister or your best friend, right? Into a narrative. The court, the guardian ad litem. How good are they at manipulating therapists, right? That's Machiavellianism. The next is psychopathy, where they're willing to break the law. Every single one of them have already broken the law. And the last one, and again, people tell me this is dramatic. We have research from February 2024 that talks about these dark tetrad people who are sadistic. They actually want you to feel pain. They want you to feel pain. They enjoy it. I actually did a training recently and I said it's not high conflict. Because anytime something's high conflict, we have to ask ourselves, who is the person with more power in the relationship? And in that, that's the person, if you look at the relationship dynamics over time, you recognize they're exerting power everywhere. Now, there might be a trauma victim who's overreactive and it seems like they're trying to control things, but are they doing it as a result of their trauma, or are they doing it because they're an abuser and they need to control everything? So when I think of course of control, I think about it as a multifaceted strategic pattern. It's a pattern of behavior. One more than one is a pattern, by the way, to diminish another human being, to take away their agency, to take away their autonomy. Abusers start off with obtaining control. How do they obtain it? Love bombing, future faking, shape shifting, all the things that made you actually really fall in love with this person. That's obtaining control. But now I need to maintain it. How am I going to maintain it? Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll gaslight her. I'll make sure that she comes home because she has to take care of me. I'll take on victim stance. I need a caretaker, right? I will manipulate. I will isolate. That's how I maintain control. And then the next level is as soon as she tries to escape, and everybody, the court system doesn't understand this, right? Coercive control intensifies post-separation. It gets worse. The abuser uses the legal system as another way to harm, right? They use vexatious litigation. And of course, people are like, oh my God, my child and I were so close all along, and now we're not close anymore because they use the children. But I'm here to tell you, it didn't just happen at separation. See, what we didn't know about these abusers is that all along, they were eroding away our autonomy, our agency, our ability to have clarity and to trust ourselves. They were doing the same thing all along with our kids. It didn't start the time you decided to separate. It started day one. The moment you held that baby in your arms, think about a person who's unhealthy. Their character traits are disordered. They need to have power and control. I'm sure you could look back now on your relationship and think of all the ways this person was controlling you, and now you're connecting the dots, right? I'm sure. So what happened was, frankly, again, dramatic, but yeah, the day that you hold that baby in your arms, an abuser knows they cannot love the way you do. They see this amazing love you have. And they're like, whoa, I don't have that ability. There's a shame for them. And then they recognize the one thing they can use against you to hurt you the most. So my children remember the day and the hour that my ex started to, what I call, maliciously fracture their attachment to me. They remember it because he had cheated on me and I went to work, and then he told them that I was the cheater, that I was unstable. I was off my medication is what he said, right? And they were 9 and 10. But here's the thing. From then, lots of contempt and disregard, and I had no idea what was going on. We would call it alienation, right? But alienation is the product. Alienation is what the end result is. The malicious fracturing of attachment, and I'm segueing into what happens with our children. The malicious fracturing of attachment is actually the process that's been going on since the day we held the baby. They had to diminish us in certain ways. They had to counter parent. They had to, in some ways, maybe say, oh, mom's so tired all the time, or it's too bad mom's working again. There was always this diminishing going on, maybe mockery in your home. It was a joke, but it really wasn't a joke, right? And the children would join in. So we always wonder how our children have, in some ways, if you have had this experience, how they're not as close to you. What's happened? My suggestion to you is that the abuser started day one. And so part of our work is to counteract that all of the time. If you have a kiddo who gets it right now, who like maybe doesn't want to go to dad's house, is uncomfortable, is distressed, is sharing that with you. That's why I wrote the children's book. I don't have a copy of it right here, Every Moment of Every Day, because we have to actually meet them where they are and provide them with regulation because we have to force them. It's the biggest moral injury of all. We have to force our children to go with someone we know is abusive. So when I think about coercive control, I want you to really consider it's the underpinning of all abuse. All abuse starts off in a way that's grooming, alluring in. And what these abusers have done is they've lured you in and then you got clarity. Whoa, you got it. And now you need to be punished for that. But here's the problem. Our kiddos have been groomed all along too. It's like a cult. I don't know if you've seen, I do a webinar called It's a Cult Leader in the Home. These kids have been groomed all along. And so how do we counteract that? How do we help them through that process? The psychological warfare that's going on inside of their brains, again, unacknowledged by court systems. You know, I have multiple mothers where the abuser has even been arrested for child sexual abuse. And they go on supervised visitation and then they're better. They've healed. You know, these child sexual predators heal, right? You know that. Yeah, right? This is why we need to infiltrate the system, everybody. This is why we need to be working within the systems and push out the people who are in there. It's the only way to change the system because they seem to think that there's nothing wrong with a child who has suffered what I call malicious fracturing of attachment to a safe, protective parent. Maybe you don't know this, but attachment is primary to healthy development, secure attachment. If I can securely attach to something, I can be myself. I can relax. Think about you in that home. Were you ever able to really relax or were you walking on eggshells all the time? Think about your children when you were in the home. They recognized, watching the mood, checking it out, as Dr. Emma Katz says, omnipresent abusers. They are literally always there, even if they're not in the home, right? Whether the children overtly fear this abuser or not, they are living in fear. Their bodies are constantly dysregulated. It's the bottom part of the brain. It's like where the reptile is in our brain. It's like when somebody goes through a stop sign and you're driving, you're mad, right? That's the bottom part of our brain. Our children are living there all of the time, just like we were. That causes harm to the developing brain. Now take an abuser who says things like, and they love to do this. They move. One of my episodes on Perfect Prey is called The Lure of Tweens and Teens, because as soon as these kids turn to tweens or teens, the abuser realizes, oh, wait, if I let them stay up playing video games, or if I let them stay on their social media, or if I don't make them come out of their bedroom to have dinner, now I have full control over them. Now I can easily turn them against their protective parent. And that is the goal of the 9s and 10s. On a scale of 1 to 10, the goal of the 9 and the 10 abuser is to harm and fracture that relationship dynamic. So, how much time do I have left, Katie? Do you know?
Couple of minutes.
Okay, good. So I'd like to leave on a good note. Okay, so I had this experience. And what I can say to you needs to happen, sadly, is we need to let our children see the abuser for who they are, knowing full well we may have to send them to the abuser, by the way. So with little ones, this is so hard. I work with moms with little ones and we talk about how to really create that really like discernment for them, but also for the children to understand that this is a court decision, right? And that mom has to follow the rules, right? But that the other piece to this is we don't want to gaslight our kids. And I don't even call it gaslighting. I call it disintegrated intuition, where when we're so worried about making sure they don't feel the pain in the house, and I'm not talking about physical pain and safety that way, I'm talking about the psychological pain, that we're so worried and we're running around trying to accommodate and make sure everything goes smoothly, that the kids lose sight of what is right and wrong. In other words, letting the abuser yell and scream is very scary, and you have to intervene and you are their best healers. But the reality is if they don't hear that, they will never see the abuser for who they are. Right. And so it's a fine line. I'm not suggesting this is easy. It's, obviously my particular niche and love. It's why I created the protective parenting program, because what we have to do every single day, and I love what Katie said before, we have to be intentional. Because with our children, just assume an abuser is working double time to harm and fracture that attachment. And how do you work triple time to counteract the false narrative, to know what the abuser is saying about you? You guys know this abuser better than anybody on the planet. You know what he's saying about you. You know what he's used. They always use vulnerabilities against us. You know what he is using or she is using against you. I'm assuming everybody's in a heterosexual relationship. That may not be the case. The reality is that we have to work very diligently. I call it the CIA, creative, intentional, and attuned to our children, where we are providing clarity and examples in their outside world so they begin to understand the difference between you and the abuser. It has to be clear to them. And that is about fortifying attachment as much as possible. Secure attachment buoys a child in the rough seas of the coercive controller. Without secure attachment, they are lured back in. We want them in our lifeboat. You got a lifeboat, you want them in your lifeboat. You've got to plan that the abuser is going to pull them out of the lifeboat. You've got to plan for that. So how do we heal? I think we heal in community. So an event like this, knowing you're not alone, right? Knowing that there's strategies like Katie talked about, there's strategies that you can implement to perhaps, I always say it's like a steam train coming right at you, get off the tracks. Like, how do we see that steam train coming, right? I think also what we have to do that is super important is that we have to radically accept this person is harmful. Just period. They're harmful and there's no negotiating with them. So now how do we strategize what their next step is? I always say the 3 Ps: predict what they're going to do, prepare yourself, prepare so you can better protect yourself. And the same thing goes with your children. Predict what they're going to accuse you of, prepare and protect. The next thing is having personal power, which Katie very eloquently talked about. How do we have like this? We even have to perform it. We may not feel really strong, but damn it, we better behave strong. We have to behave like we get it. We're okay. We're not broken by everything this person has done to us. And then, of course, shame reduction. How do we reduce our shame and let it go? And how do we ensure our children are not feeling any shame regardless of their behavior? Shame is never good. You can feel guilt. Guilt means I did something wrong. Shame is I am bad. And guess what the abuser wants? The abuser wants your child to think you're bad, and the abuser wants your child to think they are bad. If I can make a kid think they're bad and that their other parent doesn't really love them or that they're unsafe, I can control that child all day long. Giving your children agency and letting go of the shame is very important. And then, of course, I have a particular course on grief, because the grief in all of this, there's no words. Acknowledging the grief. So those are the ways that I think we heal, we empower ourselves, and we really become we are our children's greatest healers. I said to you in the beginning, you're doing the hardest work there is. Guess what? You are doing the hardest work there is. But guess what? There is no other place on the planet, I'm sure, than you want to be than to be the healer of your child in this horrific circumstance. And you are that healer. So I'll
Christine,
stop there.
thank you so much. That was fantastic. And I think that's such a good point to end on. It's the grief journey. It's acknowledging that this is hard, this is sad, this is difficult, but actually having compassion for our journey and compassion for ourselves as well is a really big healer in the well, a really big player, sorry, in the whole dynamic of that. So thank you so much. That was fantastic. Everyone, can we all show Christine some love in the chat, please? And this is perfect timing because our special guest has joined. I'm really excited about this. So I am going to ask her to unmute and come on. And when you see her, you're going to know who she is. If you don't, you've been living under a rock for your whole life. So please use the chat to ask any questions. And with the greatest of respect to her, let's use and abuse her while we've got her. So I'm going to ask her to uh, come on. Hang on 2 seconds. I've just fixed some bits over here. Now, I use Zoom every day of my professional life, and even today, there's still things about it that make me kind of go, "What? I don't understand." Hang on. Okay, Joe, if you tap the bottom left, you should be able to tap your video and your audio and come on. Okay, I'm okay answering quick. Okay, cool. And daily stuff. Oh, it won't let me do it for you. Hang on, I've made you a host. Where is she? Bear with, guys. Of course, there's going to be technical issues.
It did say she joined, and then it said you made her host, and then it disappeared.
Yeah,
Okay, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello.
Right, on the bottom, next to where you did audio, it should have video. Take your time. Because I want to see that beautiful face.
Aha.
Yay!
Am I on? I don't
You're,
even know if I'm on.
you're on!
Hello.
Joe! Oh my God.
I was literally helping a family in consultation. I'm like, I think I still have time. I think I still have time to come on here and answer some questions. It said this
Oh,
meeting's being recorded, all companions on. Okay, let me press okay.
this is where I'm gonna
I'm hoping this is doing good.
No, this is fine. We can see you. Everyone can see Joe and hear her, can't you? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Can I just have an unprofessional moment? I'm fucking fangirling over here. I love you so much.
I'm
Okay.
fangirling too. Love
Oh,
me too. So am I. High five.
Hoping I'd have enough time to come on. Just literally because I've missed all the fantastic information, obviously. But hoping I would have an opportunity to maybe answer some direct questions,
yeah.
you know, from parents that are living the day in and the day out of exactly these circumstances, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I said to everyone, if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. I do have a couple of really juicy ones to get the juices flowing. So,
Okay.
Joe Frost, super nanny, light of my life, online bestie. Um, if there was one thing that you wish every parent navigating post-separation abuse understood about what children need the most from a safe parent, what would it be? It's a good one, wasn't it?
I think not the pressure to put them into a position to feel like they have to take sides. Because from the perspective of the child's lens, they are not necessarily seeing how an unsafe parent is showing up because they are the they're the chess piece, right? They're the pawn on the chessboard.
Mm-hmm.
And innocently, children are in a circumstance where they may not know how they're being controlled or manipulated from the coercive, unsafe parent.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would want parents to understand from the child's perspective that if they can be mature in understanding that there is an innocent child in the middle of this that you don't need to prove yourself to, you just need to show up every day consistent and not trying to prove yourself, defend yourself, but to lovingly respond in a way that takes the pressure off the child from feeling conflicted. Then what you get to do every day is to show up with your daily routine, with your values, and to be able to parent most difficultly, because it's not easy when you have someone consistently spending all their time and energy just trying to unravel and destabilize you constantly, right? To live that with your child. I think, I help a lot of I help majoritarily, on a majority level, I help a lot of single mothers who have been put in this predicament, right? Where they've had to make a choice, right? Because they are in unsafe circumstances in the relationship. And then what happens is that the child gets parental alienated against, and then that person, the safe parent, feels like they constantly have to defend themselves, or what the abuser does is use the heart of the child to manipulate the parent. All right. So I remember not too long ago, there was a conversation about parents complaining that every time they take clothes to the other person's home, that they don't get the clothes back, and it means that they have to keep buying. And I think at some point what became very apparent was making sure that you have really strong boundaries. And then that does mean to some degree that the child a little bit does have to go through that, because it means that you're not going to be buying the new clothes all the time for them to have, and that you are showing up with those clothes so that the abusive person recognizes that they can't manipulate you through that. And it's just very stressful. It's just very stressful, but it doesn't mean that you can't do what's necessary. You just have to be very clear of accepting that this is who you're dealing with. And there's a grieving process to that, because they're not the man or the woman that you met originally. Right. And so the grieving process of understanding, you may romanticize what you did have in the beginning, and it's definitely not what you have now. And you've been courageous and brave enough to move forward and to have a life without that abuse and that coercive behavior in your life. And so at that point, you have to be very clear about what your intentions are moving forward and what your values are for your family, and to have very strict boundaries in making sure that you follow through on those.
Thank you.
And I think it's amalgamation of it's many things, as we know, living in those circumstances. And it's unlike anything else, because there's a lot of deceit and betrayal and lies, right? But you have to follow through on that, because the moment that you slip is the moment that they see that they can continue to do what they do and override that. And so I think it's really important that maybe what you pose to a child in response is more curiosity rather than defense. Because you don't need to prove yourself to your loving child, but you do need to uphold your own boundaries of safety and strong, good family values in your own home, so that your children eventually realize what's going on in the other home.
All about planting those critical thinking seeds to allow them to question and not just take at face value necessarily.
Absolutely, because I feel as your children get older as well, what you may see as a safe parent, what you may see is the behavior that you saw from your partner. Because the children have witnessed that. They may have witnessed it or seen that as a model of a healthy relationship when we know that it's not. And sometimes a parent can get angry with that child because it's triggering the abuse that they went through and what they endured. And it's easy to project that onto the innocent child when they merely were the witnesses of that behavior.
Yeah, that's such a good point as well, because I think where some people, my clients definitely do get triggered because they hear that reverberation from what they experienced. And so they often take that chance to say what it is that they want to say to the child as if it was the parent. And I always teach everyone, I'm sure everyone else here does, that you just have to be the teacher's pet of co-parenting, because that keeps everyone aligned. It keeps your nose clean, keeps the children psychologically, emotionally safe.
Sometimes it's not co-parenting.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's parallel.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are circumstances where co-parenting does not work. And so you have to parallel.
Yeah.
There's no cohesiveness of, we're all going to do things on the same page. There's not. It's parallel. It's like in their house, things are a certain way, and in your home, it's a different way.
Yeah.
There's no joint conversations about what that looks like, just the legal ones.
Yeah. I'm going to move on to a really in-depth question that is very much about the children themselves, because many parents tell me that their children seem fine on the surface and are only just really coming into the realms of understanding what masking is, but they're worried about what might be happening underneath. So what signs do you think parents should be paying attention to if they are concerned about the internal impact of two houses, two sets of rules, potentially an abusive parent, potentially a very overprotective parent on the other side, and everything in between?
I think from my perspective, because I work inside homes, with respects to behavior and dynamics, the relational dynamics, a change in anything that you have seen. So whether you are seeing a change in behavior, whether that person's become more extroverted or introverted. So how did it look and how has it changed? And what those questions may look like. It's constant work. It's constant work in the nicest of ways that you do carve that time to be able to emotionally check in with your children. And sometimes that's not done just sitting down and sort of hotspot questions. It could be that you're actually doing something together. And then you talk about, a circumstance yourself, and then it becomes the gateway or the bridge to their own feelings and what maybe they've been struggling with. And with younger children, I think it's more the behavior. Like you see it different in your home to them. Many families will say to me, it's the Monday mornings are like just back to square one again. It's back to square one. Yeah. Or 1 week with the parent, the other week, it feels like you've just gone back to base one again, in the way that they were, given really carte blanche to do what they want, when they want. Yeah. And it didn't, match your parenting values and how you raise your children. So immediately I would say ask questions that are not yeses or nos. If you're having a conversation, that it's not around yeses or nos, because that's easy to mask, but more a case of them being able to explain a little bit more as they're older about what they're feeling, about the circumstances that they may be in, or what may feel unfair or unfair. With younger children, they don't have the language, they don't have the words yet.
Yeah, that's such.
So you're looking at more behaviour in whether that changes or not, or whether that becomes louder or not.
Yeah,
it's being attuned, because as a parent you have to take care of yourself and you have to make sure, that you have at least one or two people that are a support system for you. But it's also important that you're able to be that for your child.
Mm-hmm.
So you need that help yourself.
That's so funny, yeah, that you've said that, because my next question was going to be, how important do you feel it is for parents to prioritize their own healing, their own regulation, to deal with those moments where it is just so overwhelming, just purely because of the labor?
You've heard it said many times before, you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't under any circumstances, but this takes so much more. It takes so much more, but goddamn those women that do it, and those men, right? And I know the statistics are higher for women. I know that, but I couldn't be on here to say that it's not men that don't go through this as well, because
absolutely,
they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't. There's no gender war here.
No.
With coercive control or with abusive parental alienated behavior. There's no gender war. Women do as well as men. Even though we know that those statistics are incredibly much higher with women, but it means that there's no room to play martyr. No. There's no room because your emotional and mental health matter. And I'm not talking about when you hear people say, oh, take care of yourself, it's not the quick treat here and there. It's the change in lifestyle. It's what you prioritize. It's getting the sleep that you need, because you know how much you're drained when you have no energy. It's, the fact that you have to not spin the amount of plates that maybe you feel you have to. So you start to prioritize what truly is important in your life. It's cutting out all of that distraction and that noise. So the focus becomes very narrow with respects to how you truly take yourself out of the red zone into the green zone. And that's not done. I'm telling everyone here, that's not done in a week. That's not done in a month. That's done in months, over years. It really is. So it's a long-term commitment to yourself. It's a long-term commitment to yourself. And in doing so and prioritizing yourself, you are able to then pour from your own cup, because you're able to have the energy, the patience, and certainly, I would say sometimes the tolerance, right? Because, we get tired, not robots. We're holding down jobs and dealing with, the emotional spit spat of somebody who just wants to throw you off every day, every minute, when they can have the opportunity to do so. So that's incredibly important.
The bandwidth. Okay.
Absolutely.
How about one more question, and then you can go back to your thousands of clients that I'm probably sure are waiting right now for you to join a Zoom link. Okay, so I would say probably, this is going to be a big one. What's the biggest...
Casey, I want to ask you something. What did you find the most difficult yourself as a mother?
When I became a single mum?
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of the practicalities, because my twins were 2 when I found my husband had an affair. And it was the levels of betrayal. It was the logistical, how on earth, everyone knows I've got a mouth like a sailor, how the fuck am I going to do this on my own? Even though I've got 25 plus years working with children, I was still like, how am I going to do this on my own? The financials was a huge thing. And in those moments, you really do feel like life is over. You feel like, how am I going to do this? And that's just not a rhetorical question. It's a genuine, I do not know how I'm going to do this. And that is a dark place, because then at the same time as I'm having a mental breakdown on the phone to my mum and my brother, then I've got 2 little twins that are running around like going, Peppa Pig, and me wanting to just not be that shit mum that is like, I don't want to deal with you, and having to like wipe the tears away and go, oh my God, yes, Peppa Pig, and just that summarizes the whole, like what it's like initially. It's horrible, dark, my darkest days.
I will say to many women who will relate to exactly, the thousands of women that will relate to exactly what you said there. And I mean this in a really genuine, sincere way. This is not the time for pride. It's not the time for pride. Most of those women that I speak to in the circumstances that you're in, they already came from circumstances, families where they didn't feel heard, where they didn't really feel seen. Their parents didn't really raise them with a lot of emotional intelligence, didn't really know about it, to be honest with you. They were pulling up their sleeves and they were busy working as well. And there's much to be said for learning yourself about how you came to be in circumstances, not that, you walked into circumstances that were abusive, but I think there has to be an amount of responsibility when you come out of a situation where you do the work yourself.
Yes.
Right? And how did I end up here? What was it that I didn't see? What was it that I've learned? What have I learned from this time, this season, these years in my life? What did I learn? Because I feel that as dark as it is, those circumstances are also lessons.
Yes.
Like you have to recalibrate your whole self. What did I allow? What did I tolerate? Why did I tolerate it? What was it that I was feeling inside that I allowed this to continue? Did I sacrifice myself, for the kids' sake? Was I worried that I would screw them up when they were living through this anyway? Right? So again, I feel that doing the work yourself is incredibly important, so that you don't ever find yourself back in those circumstances again, that behavior pattern, so that those red flags, you spot, you start to see straight away, because you come out differently. There's no two ways about it. And then you want to build and become stronger because you do the work yourself. You do the work on yourself. And I'm going to keep it really honest and very real with you. Like, I receive a lot of emails, like my website, joefrost.com. People come to me for private consultation, and I receive a lot of emails from single mothers that will tell me, I got out of a very abusive relationship. I was in it for 5 years. I've got, a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and and I'm now with a new partner, but now I've got troubles with my partner because and I start to see the behavior pattern again. And I'm like, oh, here we are again. So it's really important to understand that the courage that it took for you to get out of this situation so that you could break that cycle for your own self and for your children. Now do the work. Do the work.
It's going to be worth it.
Oh,
yeah.
It's life-changing.
Yeah.
It's life-changing. And there's no time for pride. It's you go to the baby banks. You call on your churches. You go to your resources, right? You go to those parental hubs. You reach out to where you can. Get to know your neighbor who's got a couple of more kids as well. There's always someone that's sitting in my age. I'm in my mid-50s, right? And older people that are more than you believe are willing to help. Yeah, you've just got to be brave enough to strike up a conversation, to be able to, really let go of some of that pride so that you can let people in to help you. And I know how scary that is because you've been let down and you've been betrayed and you feel gullible and you feel vulnerable. And nobody says you have to throw yourself straight out there, but just dip your toe in and then you can dip your foot in. And then you can build friendships and relationships with those in your community, or somebody that you met down at the library, or somebody else that was at the school, or a teacher, like I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah.
So use those resources as much as you possibly can, and build your family, build your community, because there are a lot of, you know, mothers out there that are raising their children that they don't have their parents. They may have estrangement, or, you know, for those reasons, the behavior patterns, you know, continued from the family then into the relationship. And at that point, you get to stop it. At that point, you get to write your future. You get to write that script.
Yeah.
Because like we know, you can't change what the trump card you were handled, but you certainly can change it moving forward. You know, that be on you, yeah, with exactly the decisions that you make, so that you don't stay stuck. And you recognize that you're in this space and that you do need the help. And it's really okay, because we all need the help at times. We all go through things that are so overwhelming, so challenging, all of us coaches and therapists and psychologists, it doesn't matter who you are, we all go through moments where we need the help, we need the guidance. And it's at that moment that, you know, you're not losing your dignity, right? You're being a very brave, conscientious parent that understands that I can't do it alone. I can't do it alone.
Yeah.
But what you can do in your own home is stabilize your family. You can create peace with the structure and the framework. And kids need consistency. They need repetition. It's what makes them feel safe. It's what makes them feel that everything that's happening, because it's predictable, that around them, yeah, they can trust, because that's what they're going to need to build, right? Is that trust.
Yeah. Jo, such sage words, and I will never tire of your passion for this and just helping children and parents in general.
I love to help all families.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm tired of the rhetoric around single mothers. I'm tired of the statistics that we have. We have a social media narrative where men are too quick to talk about the statistics around children, and straight away the first word they use is single mothers, you know, and like no single mother went out to be single.
No.
You know, no single-handed mother went out to be single, right? You know, she was in a relationship, kind, no doubt empathetic, right?
No,
and found themselves in a situation with somebody who was being coercive or violent and controlling and betraying, you know, and that narrative has to change, because why is it on us? Why is it on the single mothers? Why isn't it on the men? We need to teach our boys, we need to teach our men how to show up correctly, right? You know, not on the women. And so, yeah, if I'm admitting, I do have a soft spot for many a single woman that's out there, you know, raising an entire family with sometimes not a lot of support, you know. But I tell you, there's a lot of single women who are doing it and they're smashing it, you know, because they do realize, you know, the importance of what they get to change in their own homes.
I honestly think that single mums are the unsung heroes of the generation, and many generations before us as well. Because we've been written off so much, but in what you've just said, it's so true. It's so eloquent.
But it feels like a patriarch again. You know, the patriarchy dictating media, you know, that all these statistics that we see are due to, you know, the fact that single mothers weren't doing their job properly. You know, they love hard like every other mother. They want the best, you know, like any other family.
Yeah.
But we need to be able to collectively recognise where they do need the help and the support, and for those single parents to understand, you know, really what is at their fingertips and resources. Like, again, if you're a single mother raising your children and you have married friends or friends who are male, you want to be at their house, having a cup of tea, going over for dinner, having the kids over, because your children get to be around the positive influence of those other male role models.
Yeah.
And that's really important.
Yeah.
So, and that's just equally as important if you have those positive male role models around you.
Yeah.
But don't jump into anything. Don't jump into anything.
No.
Work on yourself first.
I don't know if anyone else agrees. I am so asexual now. I am happy with my dog and my twins and my businesses. And I've got a new brand coming out. It's going to be the Safe Parent Institute. It's going to help men and women. And that's me. I'm happy. I'm good. I think everyone's probably the same.
And that's where you're at right now. And that's where you're at right now. And I think that's what we need to recognize as well. It's just that what do we need right now for a period of time? And then we evolve, and that will or maybe not change, but we will evolve. Sometimes we will evolve to understand ourselves better and what we need, and to be able to make sure that we go into the next relationship that we want that's healthier. And for others, you're in a space right now where you're building, right? You're building foundations to support other women through your trial and adversity and your experience as well, which is a good thing for many.
Thank you, Joe. I'm going to let you go because I
hope I can get off this thing now.
I'm going to have to boot you off.
Please do. But sending my love to
thank you so much, Joe. Everyone really appreciates it. No one more than I, but love you and thank you so much. Have a great day.
Love to everyone.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Katie.
Take care.
Bye.
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 Everyone, come back in. Everyone, come back in. Come back in. She booted us off. Oh my God. Oh dear. She booted us off. Whoopsies. Well, I fucking told you there would be technical issues and she fucking booted us all off. Oh my God, how funny. How fucking funny. Right, we're getting so many other people joining back. We did have, I think, 30. Hopefully everyone will come and join back on. Hang on 2 seconds. Let's just take a minute. Can we just take a minute? We had fucking Jo Frost.
I used to love her when I was younger.
I know. I have my ways.
Fangirling, but also equally feel like I've known her my whole life.
Yeah.
I feel like we're friends.
Sit and watch her, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, my girls will put her on YouTube. Like, they were watching her yesterday. And yeah, and like, did you see when I said online bestie? And she's like,
I called Ruby and have a look at the screen, and she went, "Who is she?" I was like, "Rubes, how do you not know who she is?"
Ruby. No, come on. Right, I'm so sorry for everyone that's just reconnected. Thank you for reconnecting because she made her a host and she booted us off. But it's fine because she won't even be aware. Steph, I messaged my sister and her response was fuck off. I told you I had a surprise for you all. Don't do things by halves, I knew. Right. Now, I think I saw Nawal said she had to go because of an international client. So hopefully she might join back. We'll see. But Elise, are you happy to give your presentation? I've got your slide already. You just tell me when you want me to put it on.
Yeah, you can put it up while I'm speaking if you want to. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm slightly put out by the fact that I'm following Jo Frost.
I'm
so
sorry.
I've got Elise from Doncaster. But we will roll with it.
Roll with it.
I know a few people kind of on the call. I've been working with Katie for a while. But for anybody who doesn't know me, because I am not Jo Frost, I am Elise. So I'm a qualified social worker. I've worked in child protection and safeguarding and family court for around 13 years. And I'm starting to lose track of that number now. So I started Family Court Navigator, supporting parents through the family court process. and helping you understand, your experiences, the procedural aspect of things. And I have a particular specialism in safeguarding and welfare reports, having written the reports that many of you on this call will have experienced, such as Section 7 reports, Section 37 reports, child and family assessments, and everything in between. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm talking today, it's just showing a little bit strange actually, that Katie on the screen.
Shall I mean, if I do a bit of this, it's come up as 2P.
Yeah.
Have I opened it up in the wrong format? Hang on.
Oh,
No?
no, it should be on what? So it should, I don't think it matters. I think you can just probably, yeah, maybe open it up again.
Okay. Give me a second. Let me go back to our emails, and because it did
Yeah.
ask me two different formats to
I'll
open
just
it in.
kind of introduce anyway the tool I
Yeah.
want to kind of talk about today. So I wanted to give you today something practical, something that you could take away. I'm kind of a big advocate for, whenever I do training or anything like that, I really like to take away something practical, something that I can use, in real life and in my role. So I wanted to kind of give the same to all of you, and I've developed a bit of a tool that is a post-separation abuse risk matrix. And it's about helping you understand the different behaviors that you might be experiencing from your abusive ex, and it just helps you zoom out a little bit and be able to look at it sort of from a distance, because often when you are living with post-separation abuse, it becomes very normalized, and a lot of the things that you experience you no longer recognize as abuse because it's just so normal, it's such a part of your everyday life. So a lot of you may be familiar with the DASH risk assessment. That is a tool that is used when assessing the risk level of domestic abuse. So it's often used by the police, by IDVAs, by any professional working with you. That was developed around maybe 15, 16 years ago. And I think in recent years, we've gained much more understanding about what abuse looks like post-separation. So the tool that I've developed, it's not about replacing the DASH, it's not a formal risk assessment tool, it's literally about complementing some of those tools and helping you understand your experiences, be able to see the level of risk that you're perhaps experiencing, and be aware of that in your interactions with your ex-partner, but also with professionals and within those welfare reports as well. So the tool, it's showing a little bit differently on the screen, but it's
Sorry.
normally, it's fine, don't worry. So it sort of ranges from scale 1, which is, a concern, but kind of that lower level concern. And then we go up to scale 4, which is the critical risk. And then I've also included protective factors, so things that help in reduce the risk or keep you and the children safe. And I also really wanted to include a section on how you may see a victim survivor behaving. And that's about recognising, some of the things that professionals will see in your behaviour, some of the things that you will maybe recognise yourself within that category. It's about helping people understand why you might be behaving in that way, because sometimes, it's difficult for professionals to understand some of that and understand where some of that anxiety comes from. So we kind of have a habit, I think, as professionals of minimizing risk when it comes to post-separation. So particularly within social care, what I see a lot of is the risk, there's no longer a risk because parents are separated. So the child's no longer living in a home where they're experiencing domestic abuse. Well, actually, what's really quite interesting about that is that we know that one of the sort of catalysts for serious abuse and documented in research around domestic homicides is a trigger point such as a separation. So that's actually when you're at the most, the highest level of risk is when you separate. So some of the behaviours on here, there's a whole host of different behaviours that you will probably resonate a lot with. And I'm not going to kind of go through all of them today, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of them that you might, be experiencing. You can obviously read them on the screen, hopefully, if it's big enough. But things like, your ex-partner demanding urgent responses to messages that are not urgent, forgetting to send back medication, uniform, your child's blanket or teddy bear that they know they can't sleep without, to use it as a reason to turn up at your door unexpected, unannounced. Letting the children break every single rule at their house. No bedtime, no boundaries. So when they come back to you, you're the strict parent. And I know some of the other speakers have touched on that as well just now. Anytime you raise a concern, they start accusing you of parental alienation. The big one that you all experience, but we're not allowed to talk about it in family court: paying maintenance late, inconsistently, not paying it at all, adjusting their earnings to avoid paying a higher amount, demanding proof, demanding receipts from you about what you've spent the money on, refusing to pay for extras, even if it's a £2 dance class, because they pay maintenance and that's what that's for. Refusing to follow the court order, but then accusing you of not following the court order. Putting trackers on children's devices. So we're seeing these bag tags, the Apple Air tags, or whatever they're called these days. That's something that we're seeing a lot. iPads, we've got so much technology now that's becoming quite easy. AirPods I've known be used in post-separation abuse. An ex-partner leaving AirPods in the glove box of the car because they can be tracked. So things like that to be aware of as well. The big one, threatening to report you to everybody and anybody, social care, the police. And if you're a professional, constantly threatening to report you to your regulatory body, telling you, that they're going to get you sacked, you're not fit to do your job, all of that good stuff. Demanding to know about new partners, making accusations against your new partners, describing their behaviour as weird, saying that the kids have said things about them. Refusing to return the children after contact, that's obviously a big one. Turning up very late for handovers or very early, and that's about surveillance and monitoring and looking at who's at your house and that sort of stuff. And things like telling the children you're the reason that you've separated. Again, some of the other speakers have talked about framing you as the one that split the family up. So that's kind of just some of the behaviours that I've sort of listed. And this matrix is based on, over a decade of me doing this work. But most importantly, as well as the research and everything else that's gone behind it, it's also the most important part of this for me is based on your voices and your experiences, because nothing can replicate that. So, as I said, one of the things that I find frustrating as a social worker is this total minimisation, particularly from the police, but often social care as well. The minimisation of abuse when it is not in its physical form. If somebody is not hitting you, we tend to minimise domestic abuse. And ironically, what the research tells us is that physical violence is not the strongest indicator of when we see domestic homicides. And by domestic homicide, what I mean by that is where somebody is murdered by their partner, ex-partner. So the actual, the Home Office have done lots of research on domestic homicides. It's obviously, a big area of interest. And they actually found that coercive control was present in up to 78% of cases. It is the most commonly recorded aggravating factor in England and Wales in domestic homicide reviews. That is the reality. Yet still, we are living in a society where we minimise abuse if it is not in its physical form. We see it every day. The police, social care, the family courts. This is what we are seeing. And it's completely contradictory to the research. So that is one of the reasons why I developed this tool, because of this assumption that when the relationship has ended, the abuse has ended too. But actually, all of you on this call will know that probably the abuse got worse when you left. I know that many people I speak to will tell me it was easier when they were there. And not only was it easier, but actually they were able to act as a shield for the children as well. So they were able to better safeguard the children because they were present in the family home. And so they were able to kind of shield some of that and manage some of that behaviour. So I guess the key thing that I want you to take from this is that just because they didn't hit you does not mean that it's not serious abuse. I persistently speak to people every single day, and one of the first things they say to me is, I know it's not as bad as other people though, they never hit me. Yeah, and I know people that go to domestic abuse support groups, Women's Aid, places like that. And again, they come away feeling like, well, it's not as serious as them because they're, high levels of violence. And that is a kind of comment that I persistently get from people every day. So I guess one of the sort of key reasons for me developing this was to validate your experiences and help you to understand that just because they never hit you does not mean that it's not serious. And as I said, you know, when you look at the research around domestic homicides, physical violence actually sits about fifth down on the list. What we actually have is stalking, harassment, coercive control, child contact issues. They are the key indicators. So that's where I kind of developed this tool, and hopefully it's going to give you a practical takeaway from today, something that you can obviously fill out. You know, it's a little tick box exercise, and then you can see the level of risk that you are managing. So short and sweet from me, but that's kind of the main thing I wanted to share with you all today. So if you take one thing away from what I've said to you, it is that the absence of physical violence does not mean that you are not experiencing serious abuse.
Oh, that's such a good point to end on, Elise, because I think everyone here will attest to the fact that you always will go, well, was it that bad? Like, because there's always someone worse off. And that's just in life. Always, always, always. And just because just because you haven't been hit doesn't mean that you are not massively affected by someone trying to destabilize you in every way, shape, or form.
Completely agree. And just one more thing actually on that. From a social worker's perspective, some of the 2 points, some of the situations that I have experienced as a social worker, some of the houses that I have visited, that I have gone into, where we know that the primary concern is domestic abuse, you sometimes feel it feels eerie in that house. There is something off. There is something not right. There have been times where I have gone on visits and I have known I need to get the hell out of that house very quickly because something is not right. Okay. And so the second part to this is I have recently been supporting a parent, and they spoke to me, obviously shared their experiences. They're going through the court process at the moment. Not and throughout everything they told me, not on a single occasion did they mention any physical violence from their ex-partner. No history of violence, no history of violence towards other people, towards them. But by the end of that call, I was extremely concerned about that parent, extremely concerned, and probably the most concerned I've ever been. And that perpetrator did not display any physical violence towards that mum. Yeah. But as a social worker, using my risk assessment skills, I knew that was very, very serious, and I had to intervene. You know, as a professional, I've got that duty as well. Fortunately for that parent, Cafcass completely agreed with me, and they've said cut contact immediately. No physical violence, none whatsoever. So again, I share that experience because many of you will minimize your experiences because you've been conditioned to do so, but two, because you've not experienced physical violence. So I just want you to be really, really clear that physical violence is not an indicator for how serious the risk is.
Thank you so much. And that is a fantastic matrix. It's going to help so many people. Well done, you. Big bravo. Right. We're moving over to the beautiful Nadia from Raphael Law Solicitors. And her topic, I was talking to my friends at the weekend about your topic, and I said the title, which is The Person You Marry Is Not the Person You Will Be Divorcing. And they were like, oh, that's deep. And I was like, yeah, well, it's so fucking true. So on that note, thank you for being here, and over to you, my darling.
Hello guys. So yes, I thought I'd just shake it up a bit because I know that everyone else will come on and talk about children and the direct effect of abuse with children. No one really talks about the abuse with money. And so the title again is You Know Who You're Marrying, but you never know who you're divorcing. And it's so, so true. If you say it out loud and hear it again, let it resonate for a minute. It's something that comes to me all the time. I've been doing this job a really, really long time now, and I see it so much more and more. It just gets stronger and stronger for me. So for those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Nadia. I run Raphael Law Solicitors. I've got 3 offices now, and I'm a solicitor and I'm an advocate. So some of you here, I think I represent, and will be your advocate in court. And for some of you, I'm your solicitor just day to day. So as an advocate, I'm usually your voice in court. And I think, Elise, you should be an advocate, and you absolutely should be in court representing clients, because I think you just absolutely get it.
With this accent.
With the accent. I really think, be a judge, be a magistrate, do what you've got to do, but bring that knowledge into the courtroom, because we really, really need it.
Oh my God, yes.
And yeah, so I'm your voice in court if obviously I'm representing you. But the title of this talk really resonates with me, as I said, and the longer I do this job, the more I see it, and you see it because it comes out in financial control. And I know that a lot of you have got Katie's support, and you're part of this group because of the abuse that you've suffered during your relationship, post-relationship, but it does also relate to money, and often the two things kind of go hand in hand. So you've got abuse with children, and then you've got abuse with money. And of course, the same thing goes for people that are married. So if you're married, there's abuse. If you're cohabiting and you didn't get married, if you're same-sex relationship, there can be abuse. And there's all of these different avenues, but they all tie hand in hand. And I think, Katie, you said something really early on about knowledge is power. So I thought I'd just come on, just give you guys a bit of a flavour about money and things that people should be thinking about, either in your current relationships, in your next relationship. Because even though at the moment some of you might be single, but there will be a time where you will meet someone else and you'll think, wow, this is amazing. But think with your head and not your heart. So for me, the things that I like you to think about, and things that people don't talk about enough, are prenups. Prenup. If you have any assets at all and you have children from a previous relationship, you don't want those assets going to your new partner in the event that that marriage breaks down or that relationship breaks down. Or if you're not marrying and you have an asset, or you're going to do something together with that person, think about your intentions at the time that you start that relationship. What would you want to happen if that relationship should break down? Record it. So if you're not getting married, you've got a cohabitation agreement. If you are getting married, it's premarital agreement, prenups, as most of you will know, and then postnups as well. So postnups come after the marriage. And historically in this country, prenups, postnups, cohabitations weren't really binding. Nowadays, even though the law hasn't completely changed, we've got really good case law, which now tells us, the courts and us lawyers, that if certain factors are present when you do your prenups, when you come to enter into them, or your postnups or your separation agreements, as long as it's got a few factors which the court want to look out for, usually the court will put weight on it, and the court will make those agreements stand out. So just for your knowledge, those kinds of things are, so both of you would need to have to enter into that agreement voluntarily. So no duress from either party. Both parties need to give financial disclosure. So that means giving the other person everything about what you have. So you need to disclose. So if you own a house here and a house in Spain, you need to say what you have, because if you don't and it comes out later on, the whole thing could be deemed as invalid. Both of you need independent legal advice. I've had so many prenups come to me where it's been one-sided. They go, oh, well, I spoke to his lawyer. That's not good enough. You both need to have your own lawyers. Your own lawyers will run through each of those terms with you and explain the consequences of what those terms are. And usually a prenup, if it's before a wedding, needs to be done at least a month before, 28 days at the absolute minimum. So prenups can take a while to start prepping. I'll make you laugh. I've recently got a stall in a wedding fair, and I made so many brides laugh because they're like, oh, this is for a prenup. I was like, absolutely, you're about to get married. Have you thought about a prenup? So anyway, it's the latest thing I started doing. It's actually quite funny.
That's
and
brilliant.
So many people don't think about it. But I was like, hold on, I'm going to get a stand at a wedding fair and just spread the message that it's really important to think about premarital agreements and the finances and what's going to happen if you've got a child, if you don't have a child, if you've got one child, if you've got two children at the time of separation. What is that? What is the agreement? What is the intention between both of you? And the agreement needs to be fair. So it needs to be fair for you guys. So for example, if you did an agreement and it doesn't make a provision for children and you split and you've got 3 babies, what then? Is it still fair? So the court's probably then in those circumstances going to say that's not fair, so I'm not going to uphold it and I'm going to change the terms of what the agreement is. When you have your own lawyer, most good lawyers will think forwards and we will be able to advise, oh, but it's missing this, or but you haven't thought about this, or what about having a review clause in 2 years' time or every 5 years or whatever it might be. So it's really important that it's fair. Same with cohabitation agreements. So many people nowadays, and you guys have probably heard on the news last week, there's all this chatter now from the government who are finally saying they're going to make some reforms to our cohabitation laws in this country, because they are not the same rights to unmarried women as would be if they were married. And so now we have finally heard from the chair of resolution. I'm just going to read you the quote. It says, "For too long, unmarried partners have been placed at risk of significant financial hardship and uncertainty when their relationship comes to an end, through separation or through death. The current law has simply not kept pace with changes in society and often enables perpetrators of domestic abuse to continue that abuse after the relationship has ended." I see it so much in my practice. It's unreal. The level of abuse when it comes to financial split with parents that aren't married at separation is through the roof. And the law in this country has for far too long allowed that to happen. So finally, after years and years of most of us resolution lawyers asking that be changed, there is now finally a consultation happening. I mean, I don't know when the changes will come in, but it's anticipated that the law will change and it will make it much better for parents who don't marry and separate and have children, and where they need financial support or provision from the other parts. So advantages, if we want to think about why people should think about prenups, to me, it just provides clarity. It narrows any issues that you might have post-separation as to, you know, what you're going to fight about. It safeguards premarital wealth. It safeguards pre-cohabitation wealth, what you might have worked really, really hard for. Like I'm at the moment divorced, but I'm in a new relationship with someone who I very hope I do marry. I'll be damned if he's going to get anything I've built up. And it's just as simple as that. I don't care how unromantic it is. It's something that needs to be discussed and said, because I have 2 children from a previous relationship that I work hard for, and I'm supporting them. So the message I just want to say to everyone is that even though it's unromantic, I know, and an uncomfortable conversation to have, if you do have assets and if you have come out of a relationship where you've been through this already, don't jump out of one frying pan and into the other. Think about it really, really carefully. It's really worth spending the money to get some legal advice from a solicitor or Mackenzie Friend or someone amazing that specializes in family finances, so that conversation can be had. Have the conversation, get the knowledge, and then have a think about, you know, what it needs to be, what you need to do for your relationship. And what I want to say in terms of any agreements, if pre-marital agreements, so prenups or postnups, are unfair or haven't been reviewed, then the family court judge can supersede them and can make orders that depart from those agreements because they are not legally binding in this country. So even though the court will put weight on them, if all of those factors that I mentioned earlier are in play, they still can depart if they feel that it doesn't make enough provision for you and the children. And the same with separation agreements and cohabitation agreements. As long as you get the right advice, just think about what your intentions are going into the relationship and what you would want if the relationship ended. I think it's just so important. So for me, to conclude kind of what I want to say about finances is that it's a secondary avenue for these abusive men and women to use, in addition to the issues that they bring with children and relationships, kind of managing those co-parenting or parallel parenting relationships. So rather than allowing an extra layer of abuse, think about it before you step into a new relationship. So that's why I just wanted to bring that today, just to be something a little bit different, not talk about children and, you know, what we know about abuse with children. So yeah, so that's really what I want to say about that. So just think about it and think about it again. And just remember, the person that you're divorcing or separating from is not the same person that you entered the relationship in.
It turns into a different beast.
100%. I'm yet to see a couple that splits that says, oh, he's amazing. You know, even if they come to me with agreed terms and it's a consent order, they're still like, I can't stand him. He's the worst person in the world. Like, there's a thin line between love and hate. And I just think they change. With men and women, both ways, it all changes when it comes to me. So just, take that away.
It's so true. And it blows my mind that there's still women. And I was sat with one away at the weekend who doesn't work and doesn't make her own money and gets an allowance from her husband. And I was like, May, you are so vulnerable. This is, what if it implodes tomorrow? She was like, I'm sure it'll be fine. I was like, that's what we all say.
That's it. Yeah, it blows my mind. And even after I've had my practice 11 years, even after 11 years, I still go, you what? You do what? You do what? You agree to what? It still blows my mind week
Yeah.
in and week out. So I just thought I'd bring something different to the table. A lot of you on Single Mums Club know me, know the work that I do. So I do children as well as divorce and family, but I just thought I'd bring that in today. And if anyone needs any help with family finances, let me know.
Thanks so much, Nadia. And if anyone's heard me talk about Nadia before, I always say, like, when they've got an ex that has a very different fight style, that's when I'll say, you need Nadia, because she's a killer. That's what everyone hears me say about you.
Thanks, Dad.
Girl crush. Right. I've just been, if you've seen me looking down, I'm furiously texting Lisa from Been There, Got Out. She is in New York State, and for some reason she's having trouble joining. To which point I was like, listen, Joe Frost doesn't even know how to work Zoom, and she just came on, so come on. And then Lauren Bishop as well has also messaged me. Apparently she has a storm where she's living and her power is all out. So yeah. Of course there's going to be issues. Of course. However,
I'm very happy to answer any questions that anyone might have, Katie.
I was going to say, yes, if everyone wants to get in the chat, I think probably the chat is the best place for you guys to ask your questions. Try and keep them as succinct and on topic as possible, because just from my own experience, I remember thinking I need to give the backstory and I need to tell this. You don't actually. Just ask like the basic bitch version of your question, and then if any of the professionals need more info, then they can ask you. But yeah, this is definitely a good time for you guys to ask your questions. We are already over because we've had the bonus of Super Nanny joining us as well, which I'm sure all of you guys got such good value from. And as well, can you all just give me a 1 in the comments, in the chat, if you have found this helpful, enlightening? Super Nanny made my life. I know. Oh. Oh my God, so many ones. Oh, bloody fantastic.
I did wonder if we could call her Super Nanny. Almost wondered if it was like calling, whoever Ian Beale is, Ian.
I think.
Does she still do Super Nanny?
No, she doesn't. She does a lot of production now. So she's like, when she did Joe Frost Extreme Parental Guidance, she was the producer on that. See, Joe Frost must.
I know she went to America at one point. I think I watched loads of her American Super Nannies.
Yeah, she lives there now with her husband in California.
She?
Yeah,
oh, right.
yeah. That's why. Yeah, that's why she looked all like bronzed and everything, because she lives there all the time. And comes back to the UK very regularly. Now, I've threatened her as well. I've said the next time I come to America, you're giving me your address because I'm turning up.
More like, can you look after my kids? That's what I would do.
Yeah, count me with these 2 little rats. Exactly. Oh my God. Victoria said, how to best to deal with constant alienation allegations. Right. I think Elise can give us a really good insight on this, but for the most part, I think you need to ground yourself in the reality, and your brain will play so many tricks on you, and because you've been so groomed by this person, you will always think that what they're saying carries weight, and it doesn't. Okay, you need to separate the facts from the fiction. Okay, and this is why we always have text conversations, not on WhatsApp. No, we don't message on WhatsApp. We either email or we use a co-parenting app. That's it. Okay, everything is written, because if it was verbal, it didn't happen. That's where the distinction lies. Then you're going to always put your best foot forward in terms of your children, how you speak in front of them, not being derogatory about the other parent in front of them, not throwing them under the bus, showing up as your best self with your Oscar performing mask on for every fucking handover to be that best teacher's pet of co-parenting. Because when you keep showing up like that, you keep all of your comments, your communication perfect. And remember, I mentioned at the start, use my SafeSend app. You can literally write whatever the fuck you want in there, and it will give you the right response. I've got so many clients that say to me, I've tried to be like, to get a little dig in, and it won't fucking let me. Yeah, because that's not court safe, all right? You've got so many tools at your disposal so that when you get, say, in front of a judge or a mediator and they're saying, she's alienating me, she's doing this, you can literally go, prove it. Because here's my communications. I'm very fair and reasonable. I'm not overly friendly because we're not there, but I am professional, I'm cordial, and I'm fair and reasonable. I have not stopped any contact. I facilitate all calls. I am very good at handovers. I don't disparage him. Like, there will literally be nothing that they can hold at your door. Elise, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
In the spirit of Mel Robbins, let them make the allegation. And I guess the only other thing I would add to that is that in the context of domestic abuse, then the right procedure is that the court first need to determine the nature of the abuse allegations before considering alienating behaviours allegations. Very often used as a counter allegation, very commonly seen now, buzz phrase being used a lot in the family courts. And I would just say everything that you said, Katie, and let them prove it, because actually, if they're not able, I actually just had somebody yesterday have a final hearing, and the main allegation from the dad is alienation. And that those proceedings have concluded today with no contact. So the courts are aware of this. There was no evidence whatsoever of alienation for all of the reasons that you've just said, Katie, yourself. Contact has continued to happen. There's no evidence that the children have been coached. The professionals are seeing the children. They believe the children's wishes and feelings are their own and that they've not been influenced. So all of that.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Nadia, I think this is a good one for you. How likely is a judge to change a custody arrangement for a disabled child when one parent has always been the main parent and the dad is very manipulative and inconsistent?
Yeah, I said very unlikely.
Oh, did you? Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I was just trying to answer them at the same time that Elise was
well
talking,
done.
saved you time. I said very unlikely, unless, Fiona, you are a bad parent that can be proved with evidence and that there are concerns about your ability to care. I think very unlikely that the court would remove you as a primary carer. Of course, all cases of facts to specific, so I'd need to know what concerns would be, but I think very unlikely.
Just to add to that as well, from social workers' perspective, if you end up with a welfare report in that scenario, then I totally agree with that. I would be thinking about actually, for most children, routine is really important, but particularly for a child who's got those additional needs as well. That routine, that structure, that understanding of their needs, that primary attachment becomes even more important.
Nice one. Thank you so much. Alicia has put, when there is no court order in place, how do you know when to take it to court? And I think it's really clear that when things just are not working and everything, I think I did a really good podcast about this ages ago, and it was vague equals vulnerable. And it's when there's so many kind of discrepancies or abilities for them to twist narratives or rewrite routines because of anything that's kind of any ambiguity. Oh my God, I can't even say it anymore. Anything that's ambiguous and they can use it to their advantage. That's when you need to think about mediation and you need to start going down that route. If mediation's not possible due to domestic violence that's been documented, you can always try to see if you can avoid mediation because of that. But if you do mediation, you can always do shuttle. I mean, Nadia is a qualified mediator as well. You're probably going to be able to answer this 10 times better than I am. But I think the bottom line is when things are just not working anymore. What do you think, Nods?
Oh, sorry. I
That's
thought
right.
it was Elise. For me, I think when it gets to the point that there is no routine and stability for the child, I think that's the point when you just go, enough's enough. Our kids, as they get older, they need more and more stability, structure, routine. And if they don't have it, we suffer. Us at home are the ones that suffer. So I just think it's really important that if he is saying he will see the child willy-nilly ad hoc, whenever it suits him. Absolutely not. Like for me, that's the cut-off. But each person has to get to their limit. We all have a limit, right? And everyone has to get to that limit. And I think you'll know when you're at your limit. But for me, it's about when it's too much for that kid.
Yeah, completely. When it's just not working and there's too much twisting and there's too much, it shouldn't be this way. They want it this way. They want chaos. They want you jumping like a little puppet on a string. Remember, they're the puppet master. They're going to change contact. They're going to ditch contact. They're going to make up their own rules. And that is ultimately going to piss you off, yes, but it's ultimately going to impact the children. And that is where we draw the line. Now, hear me when I say the goal is to avoid court. That is always going to be the goal, which is why mediation is there. Personally, as a high conflict co-parenting coach, I believe that court is inevitable because we are dealing with a very specific breed of person that always will need that higher authority to preside over them and set the terms. And even then, some of them don't even follow it. But every effort should be made. And this is where, like I said in my talk at the start, the long game comes into play. And throughout all of this manipulation, all of the goalposts moving, and all of the ambiguity, all of that, that's when it feels like it's never ending, and it feels like it's torture, and it is psychological warfare. I've talked about this on podcasts. I've talked about it in my content. Christine mentioned it before. It is psychological warfare. It's completely the same. And that's when your regulation, your sleep, because even Joe mentioned that. Hello, my Academy members. What the fuck do I say to you every week? You need your sleep, because the tired, overwhelmed, exhausted version of you is so much easier to manipulate. So much easier. And they fucking know as well, which is why our Oscar-winning performance has to come in for every handover. Every single communication point of contact with them has to be on point, detached, grey rock, child focused, court safe, doesn't go into playing this game of the manipulation and basically getting you triggered. That's what they want. They want to know that they affect you. When you start detaching all of those things from them, they start to lose control. But it's a long game. It takes time. This is why my academy is minimum 12 months sign up, because I wish this could be solved with one event, one masterclass. That would be the goal, but it's not, because you guys have to learn an entire new way of communicating and just being and reacting, and that comes with a lot of nuances, a lot of mindset shifts, and a lot of time.
And I think it's about having an army of people around to support, because Katie, what you do is absolutely amazing. But like what Elise does, Elise supports some of my clients, and I'm a lawyer, and I still go, I need people like Elise to support my clients that need that help, because it's just too much for one person to support with. So I think the great thing about your academy is you bring everyone in and you provide all different avenues of support for everyone. And I think that's why it's so important that people do sign up for the 12 months, because I just think they get so much for it. I wish all my clients would do it, honestly, and Elise will probably say the same thing. We all support one another, but we all need each other to make this kind of work.
And Joe really touched on it before, in that you can't do this on your own. And I think that's why we are all here. Nadia's been doing this for 11 years now, because she saw how much everyone struggled. I know you do divorce and everything, but that will have stemmed from your own pain, your own experience, and your own need to help people. I know from Elise as well. Legally Nick, absolutely. Sadly, she's dealing with a vomiting child at the moment, but she is dealing with so much behind the scenes and has done. And it really comes from a stem of just wanting to help. And I remember getting to the point where I created what I now call my emotionally bulletproof framework, which is in the academy. And I realized, like, this is working. I can teach this to people. I can show people how to do this. And for those of you that have been with me from the start, Jazz, I know you have. Initially,
hi, Jazz.
There she is. Initially, my academy was like a 3-month container. And then I was like, well, maybe 6 months. And then I really, really dived deep into it and realized this can't be done in just a few months. It has to be at least a 12 months container. So that's where you get legal professionals every month. You get people like Elise coming in every month to just give you that knowledge. Because what did I say at the start? Knowledge is power. And none of us can do this on our own. We have to pull in these people to help us. And here they are, all in front of you at the same time. And I think that's a really good point to wrap up on. I just say though, thank you guys for being here with me. I'm sorry that Joe cut us all off. Um, I think that's
I feel really bad
absolutely.
because there's so many unanswered questions. Like I feel like I could answer some of these questions, but I know there's no
Oh,
time. So if you
yeah.
want, you just email them to me and I can try and answer some of them. I feel bad.
Yeah, well, tell you what, guys, email me and I will create a hub of questions that I will disseminate out to the experts, okay? Um, I would say, what are we on? Wednesday. My academy offer is going to be running until Sunday and then it finishes. So, how about we say until Sunday, if any questions pop up, because obviously we're all going to go and live our lives and they'll be like, fuck, I wish I asked this question. So, until Sunday, I'll do some posts to just jog your memories. Please email me and just put it question from the Alliance or Alliance question so that I can segment it down and I can disseminate it out. And then everyone can get that real wraparound support and direction because that's the goal of the Alliance. It's to give you guys the help and support you need all in one space. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. I am going to finish it there. We all need to go and get our rest and our sleep. But just know that you're not alone in all of this. There is help, there is support, there is guidance, and there's fucking amazing, powerful women here ready to help you every step of the way. Thank you so much. And I will see you very soon. And next year for the Alliance, hopefully we'll be doing it in person, a big in-person event. That'll be amazing. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello there and welcome. My name is Noelle Houghton and I'm your divorce coach. I am a lawyer, I'm accredited mediator, and I help both men and women in the divorce and separation process, specifically when you're dealing with someone high conflict. And today I want to talk about co-parenting, if we can call it that, with a high conflict ex. So let's dive straight in. I want to ask you a question first of all, and you don't need to answer it out loud. Certainly you can keep it for yourself, but I just want you to sort of notice what happens in your body when you see your high conflict ex's name come up on your phone or an email. I just want you to think about the feelings that sort of come for you. What happens in your body? Notice that for me, okay? Because for a lot of us, there's a drop in the stomach. There's a shaking, there's a fear, a tightening in our chest, and a little voice that says, oh my God, what now? What is it now? And some of you have actually learned to feel that before we've even read the message. It's just the name itself. That's not a weakness, and that's what I want you to remember. It's your nervous system. It's your nervous system effectively doing your job around protection for months, years, and it's being on alert. So before anything else, I want you to hear something very clearly. If you are co-parenting with this particular person, it's going to feel harder than the divorce itself, actually. You're not failing on any level. And the reason I'm saying that is because you've handled something so very genuinely difficult. And most of the advice that we get out there is actually written for two reasonable people that want to co-parent. That, you know, sadly no longer get on, but this is not your situation. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to give you a very different way of seeing this relationship and give you some strategies, because we want some actual strategies that can help us in the moment. That's what we're looking for. A lot of you understand that you're dealing with someone that doesn't want to co-parent, that is intent on making it hard. But what can I do for myself? What can I do as a strategy for this situation? So let me say firstly, something that perhaps not everybody says out loud. You might not actually have a co-parent. What you have is a counter-parent, and that's the wording that I use. They are not co-parenting with you, they are effectively counter-parenting. So co-parenting in that way, kind of the books describe it, requires, you know, two people pulling in the same direction. You've got shared values, flexibility, the ability to put the children first. even though you may not sort of necessarily like each other anymore, you have that as your central focus. Even on a difficult day, you count yourself lucky because, you know, what many are dealing with is, you know, just someone quite reasonable, but unfortunately your situation is very, very different, because you are fundamentally dealing with someone that uses every opportunity as a chance to win. So every handover is a chance to manipulate, to cause chaos. Every message is an opening gambit for a fight. And every decision that you have to share because they are the other parent is just a battleground. So you can't actually co-parent with someone who is effectively competing with you. And the freedom is understanding that. So once you stop expecting that level of cooperation from that person that may have shown you some element of cooperation in the past, you actually start to set yourself free. You stop getting wound up about it every single week because you understand what the playing field is. So I'm going to teach you to co-parent better and also harder. I'm going to teach you to parallel parent, because that is effectively what we have to do. So what is parallel parenting? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's two parents running two homes, two separate tracks, with a few points of friction between them, of course. You're not blending two households, you simply can't. You're not negotiating bedtimes across two postcodes, you simply can't. You're each parenting your own children in a different way, and in your home, your own way, because you need to reduce the contact between you both. It's not giving up, by the way, it's a strategy. It's a strategy to manage someone who wants to be high conflict. Less contact means less flashpoints, fewer flashpoints means a calmer nervous system and a calmer childhood ultimately for your children. So the goal isn't friendship here, the goal is peace. Now, I want to give you a bit of an image because strategies can sort of fade away. So if I can give you an image to think about, I think it might help you in order to implement systems to help you. So picture a lighthouse on a cliff in a storm. Now, the wind is wailing and screaming, the waves are enormous, and the lighthouse doesn't actually argue with the sea, it just stands there. It doesn't chase the ships, doesn't run down to the water to explain itself, to kind of base itself. It simply stands and it shines, and it gives every vessel near it something to navigate by. So your high conflict X is the storm. Okay, you're not going to be able to calm them and they will rage at all costs. You've tried, it doesn't work. Trying is exhausting and it's never worked because the storm doesn't want to be calmed. The storm simply wants a reaction. So we stop trying to be the storm's equal. We become the lighthouse instead. We're steady, we're predictable, we're light from within, not cold, not blank. Grey rock, yellow rock, I don't use those terminologies because fundamentally what we want to do is be ourselves, but understanding what that ourselves is. It's a lighthouse that's effectively opposite from empty. It's full of light, full of courage, and it points the light exactly where it is needed for our children, not at the storm. So everything that I'm going to give you now is to enable you to be that lighthouse. Strategy 1. The first place the storm is going to try and reach you is your phone. It's contact. Phone, text, email. So when a hostile message arrives, the natural instinct is to defend, to explain, to correct every untruth and false allegation to match their energy. The untruthfulness of it hits us at our very core. But every time you do this, you've handed them more fuel. A long, emotional, defensive reply is a gift to a high conflict person. It tells them that their hook has indeed worked. So instead you're going to learn to write in a much more simple way. And it's simple enough to remember. You may have heard it before, BIFF. We're going to keep things brief, informative, friendly, but firm. So brief is because I want you to only really respond, and you're going to try and keep this to 2 or 3 sentences, no paragraphs. The longer your message, the more surface area you're giving them in order to attack, the more information you're giving them to base a strong, argumentative, attacky response. The wall of text says, you got me. You know, all of these messages means that's it, you hit me. A short message says, I'm fine, I'm standing firm. The information is going to be sticking to facts and logistics, times, dates, arrangements, no feelings, no emotion, not you always, you never, that's untrue, don't say that, I can't believe it, that's not what you said last week. We don't do that. Now, when I say friendly, I don't mean warm, and I don't mean sort of fake. It's more being neutral and civil as opposed to argumentative. So that means saying things like thank you or noted at the start or at the end. It looks wonderful actually in front of a court system, but more of that sort of a little bit later on. Firm. We're closing the loop. We're ending the conversation. We're not allowing for this continuous narrative. We're not leaving the door open for 10 more messages. So let me give you an example. They send you a very long, angry message accusing you of something ridiculous like poisoning the children, not cooking the food properly, or poisoning the children against them, or threatening to take you back to court, as always the high conflict ex does. The old you might have written 3 paragraphs, obviously defending what you did, defending what you said, saying that you didn't say that. The Lighthouse actually writes something like this. Thanks for your message. The children are with you on Saturday at 10, as agreed. I will have their kit packed, speak then. We don't mention false allegations, don't mention what they said. It's just not using the bait. Don't pick it up, whatever the bait is. So you've answered nothing that they wanted you to answer, actually. You've given them no fuel. You've stayed very factual, very civil and closed. And you've protected your own peace, which is the fundamental strategy here, because you spent 30 seconds on that reply instead of 30 minutes in overthinking and a sleepless night invariably. So you could just learn, and this is the key, and it's hard because I think every part of us wants to respond differently. So it is a learning, and you might not necessarily get it right the first time, but this is your baseline. The opposite of something like this, which people sometimes get confused and think grey rock or more than grey rock, just the silent treatment, actually doesn't help. You're not actually disappearing when you go silent. You're communicating, but in a different way, and actually sounds like fear, and it actually makes a situation worse. So you're still shining by giving that example, shining as the lighthouse, but what you're doing is refusing to use the shine from the chaos of the high conflict ex and standing as your own. So the next thing that I want you to do is using something that you need to sort of rely on. So a text or a voicemail here or there, a comment at handover, a message through your child, an email, you know, they might even email your parents or friends. So when communication is very scattered, you never really can get your footing because it's all sort of all over the place. So I want you to do something quite powerful and firm. And that means that you're going to close all these doors. So we're going to pick a single channel of communication. Okay, so we might use a co-parenting app such as Family Wizard or Talking Parents or App Close, because everything needs to be logged and kept in one space, and it allows our sort of system to be calmer. If we're thinking it's an email or a text or something else, it's just all over the place. Keeping it to one channel gives us that sense of calm. And again, what we're going to do is keeping our instigation around using this one channel very calm. So something that you want to say to them is, going forward, I will keep all our communication about the children to email, so we both have a clear record. For anything urgent regarding their safety, please call. Again, we haven't faffed, we haven't sent reasoning, we haven't explained, we haven't told them that they're bad. We've just given our situation. You will probably get pushback. The high conflict ex hates being moved somewhere that they don't feel that they can control the territory, and they obviously want to use favourite tools that they feel create the chaos that they want to cause in you, but we still stand firm. So what I mean by that is if you're using the app or you've chosen maybe email instead of text messaging, if they text you, we don't respond because we haven't received it. We've already told them email it is. And if they say, I text you, said, I haven't received your email, we stand firm. There's no point responding if they text message via email, you're still keeping the same system. And when we start to do things, a couple of things happen. First, you stop being ambushed all the time in front of children at handover at any given moment. You actually also give yourself a time to pause and think, because writing actually is slower than texting. Okay, even typing is slower. And third, and this is where it matters the most, is that you're building full court actually very a very clean, calm and factual record of what's going on. We're not driving with emotion. We're just giving ourselves time to control our nervous system, which is then reflected in the communication with the high conflict X. Because imagine a judge reading that thread. On the one side, very long, escalating, emotionally driven, accusatory messages. On the other side, short, polite, factual, child-focused replies. That's how you look different. You don't have to say a word about their behaviour. They're demonstrating it themselves through the evidence that you're going to potentially be producing. The contrast is already there. Your calm actually comes before you even open your mouth in front of a court system. And that is once again that lighthouse shining from within, standing firm. I want you to set some boundaries. The boundary message, the high conflict X's worst nightmare. Boundaries is a word that gets used quite a lot. So when I said it, you probably raised your eyes and thought, oh, here we go again, another discussion about boundaries. But I need you to make it quite practical, because a boundary is not something that you actually say to them. It's something that you do. It's something that you decide for yourself. So this is the boundary number one, is actually a pause. It's a pause when a message lands and your heart is racing. You don't reply from that place where your nervous system is on fire. You give yourself a window. Unless a child is in genuine danger, nothing, almost nothing, needs to be replied in the next 10 minutes. So I want you to adopt a bit of a personal rule. Hostile message in, no reply for a set period. That's your new rule. An hour, a few hours, overnight if you need it. If it's not even urgent, 2 to 3 days. Why does this work so beautifully? Because high conflict individuals thrive on the instant reaction and instant drive. The speed of your reply is the chaos that they want. The speed of your reply tells them how much they've rattled you. When your calm reply arrives the next morning, brief, factual, the lighthouse is still standing, the storm has lost its wave. You've changed the rhythm effectively, and the rhythm is where the power is. So we're stripping away the power from that rhythm. The second is the filter. So before you respond to anything, run it through one particular question. Ask yourself this question when you look at your reply. Does it actually need a response from me? Yes or no? Look at the message. Because for a lot of the time with my clients, I'm saying no response required. And that rattles my clients sometimes, because we're sitting with the uncomfortableness of not having said anything, especially when there are false allegations. But genuinely ask yourself when you see this message, does it actually warrant a reply? And if I were to respond, what does it actually add? Or does it just fuel the fire? Logistics about a pickup time, absolutely. An insult dressed up as a question, no. A demand for a reaction, that's what that is. A long message relitigating the entire marriage or your situation or your behaviour doesn't need a response. You're allowed to go unanswered on matters. Silence to provocation is not rudeness, it's protection. It's actually a sentence. Silence can be a response, actually. Not every hook needs a response to it or a reaction. And the third boundary, it's actually relatively quite small, but it's actually the hardest. You're going to decide for yourself in advance what you will and will not discuss. So the children, absolutely. Your new partner, no. Old arguments, no. How you spend your time or money, no. Your parenting choices, no. Because when they drag the conversation off the children and onto you, you're not going to follow. So that's a rule that you're going to implement. You simply return to the point. So an answer for you would be, I'm only going to discuss arrangements for the children. Would you like to confirm Saturday? You become very calm. You only ever talk about one thing, because that's the boundary that you've implemented for yourself and you have to adhere to it. Pleasant, immovable. You light up and you move away. Another strategy for you. Everything so far that I have told you has actually been about you and the storm and the lighthouse, and I've given you that analogy so that you can remember it. But what I want to talk about now are actually the children that are standing in between both of you. Because fundamentally what the research tells us, and something that I see every week with my clients, children are actually quite resilient to divorce itself. that's not what actually harms them. What harms them is not the separation, it's actually the conflict that arises through the separation. It's them being caught in the middle of it. So the single most protective thing that you can do for your children, more than a clever message or staying silent and even respecting your boundaries, is to keep them out of the line of fire. So this means 3 commitments that I'd like you to do. And I'm going to ask you to make them quietly to yourself. Either now in this presentation, write them down, or take them away and consider them later. First, your children are obviously never messengers, even for the smallest things. Not tell your mother, father they owe me for the school trip, or tell your mother, father that they need to pick you up from, etc. Not ask your father or mother why they were late or why they didn't pack something. The moment you give your child even the smallest of message, you are asking them to carry some element of the conflict, and they feel responsible for that particular outcome. Adults communicate with adults. Children communicate about nothing but their own day, their own feelings, their own situations. Second, your children are effectively never your spies, even though the high conflict X will do this. So that's why you need to be the better person. You're never going to be tempted because you are worried to ask about what potentially happens at the other house. We don't want to do that. We don't want to put our children in that difficult position. So try as safely as you can to let the other home be its other home. It's almost like being its other country. Unless, of course, there's a real safeguarding concern. You obviously don't need me to tell you that's a situation where we change that particular rule. So we just want something like, did you have a lovely time? What was the most exciting thing you did there? What did you enjoy the most? Is kind of conversations that we want to have for our children, and we're going to use these phrases and we're going to adapt it to the ages of the children. Thirdly, and I always like to slip in a little bit of a hard one again, is you protect the vault. You're going to protect your unity in that family. So you're not going to run the other parent down in front of those children, despite what you might think of them, despite how true it feels, no matter what they say about you. Children will remember how you made them feel. They do remember so much. And I know how it feels incredibly unfair, especially when the other parent is doing exactly that. They'll be slating you to the children. They'll be, making derogatory remarks. And here you are being asked to stay silent. But here's the long game, and I use the long game strategy with my clients all the time. Children will eventually work it out. It might not feel like that at the time or now, but they do eventually. They grow up and they will look back and they can see clearly who's the parent that kept them safe and who's the parent that kept them involved, who kept them in that situation of war and who pulled them into it. So you never will regret being the parent who held their tongue, who didn't make that comment. You ultimately will be the lighthouse that they remember. And I want to almost give you some permission, because sometimes we want that. You don't have to make both homes a particular match. Different rules, different bedtimes, different kind of sweets, whatever. Those situations are going to happen. We ultimately let that go. Children are far cleverer than we give them credit for. They learn the rules of every situation quite quickly. And that's just what I tend to say is this is just how we do it in our home, or these are the rules of our house. It's a complete and healthy answer. So trying to control whatever happens in that other home isn't going to help you and actually makes you feel like you're being dragged back in. One last strategy for you, and it might be one that you're actually all skipping, so I'm going to ask you not to. You fundamentally, as you're trying to shine the light from this lighthouse, you need power, and you can't do that running on empty. High conflict parenting, parallel parenting, is actually fundamentally a very slow drain on your nervous system. The hypervigilance, the dread, the replaying of conversations, 2 a.m, overthinking things. You don't actively put energy back into it, you will fundamentally be drained, and that's exactly what the chaos of the high conflict X wants from you. This isn't a luxury that I'm asking you to do, it's actually part of your fundamental strategy, and I think a lot of us think that it is a sense of luxury, and we tend to lose focus on how important it is. Learn to notice the hook before you bite. Learn to read yourself when that name appears. Is it, your body saying, here it comes again? Can you name that feeling? So it's actually doing a progressive exercise of going, oh, here it comes, right, I can feel it, oh, what am I feeling here? What are the feelings? Why am I having? You're actually processing what you're going through, because I think naturally we just tend to push it aside and not actually name it or living it. When you do name the feeling, it becomes easier to understand and predict in time, and easier to break down. So you're understanding yourself and you understand why you're feeling the way that you are. So even something like, oh, gosh, my stomach really hurts and I know why that is. It's that message has come through and this is really, that in itself is power. I also want you to do something else, and that's keep your circle close. Have just 2 or 3 people that you can talk to about this. You don't want to be talking to all and sundry. You definitely don't want to be carrying it alone. So don't use your children as confidants, but use a real support system, a professional one if you want, so that inside your home is calm, because you have an outage and somewhere else to go for those feelings that come up for you. And protect your own evidence quietly. So keep a simple log, dates, facts, what was said, what was agreed. It's not an obsession, it's more around protection. Because once it's written somewhere safe, your mind is actually allowed to put it down somewhere else, so it won't be continuously whirling everywhere. This is how we refuel ourselves. They seem quite basic, you've probably heard it, but here's a question for you. Are you actually implementing it? Are you actually doing it? If you're not, then why are we expecting us to react differently, or for us to be able to handle the situation better? It's effectively doing the work that will make the change. So I'm going to leave you now where we began. You can't calm the high conflict ex. You've spent enough of your years and life knowing that you can't. It's cost you sleep, tears, and pieces of yourself fundamentally that you need to reclaim. So stop trying to be their equal. Just be the light instead. Write briefly, stay civil, keep one channel on the record, pause before you react, filter what deserves a reply, keep your children out of the crossfire, and let the other home do its own thing. And you can refuel yourself with people to support you, and you supporting yourself. By the way, you're not going to be perfect at this. None of us are. We're going to make mistakes. There'll be days that we get it right, and there'll be days that we get it wrong. And that's okay. But I don't want you to feel awful afterwards. You are human and you're carrying quite a lot. But that day where things do get better will arrive sooner than you think by implementing those elements. And before you realise it, your stomach won't drop. Actually, there'll just be a sigh. Their brief reply will come quite naturally, and you're just going to be getting on with what should be your beautiful life. So the goal isn't to win here, the goal is to be set free. I hope that today resonated with you, and if you'd like more support from me, please find me on Instagram at your_divorce_coach. I've got a wonderful membership at a really affordable price at £17 a month, which has loads of masterclasses and videos like this, over 190 templates, guides, videos, notes, guidance around divorce, separation, high conflict ex. Narcissism is my unique point of interest. Managing children, how we talk to children, how we manage all the trickery that arrives from that high conflict ex, even post-divorce and certainly prior and during. My website is www.yourdivorcecoach.org.uk. Lots of information on there. I'm on Facebook as well, Your Divorce Coach. Daily content on Instagram and Facebook through my stories and up on the grid. I hope you found that useful. I hope that you implement some of those practical elements, and maybe I'll see you next time.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa. I am the female half of Been There, Got Out. And my partner, Chris, and I are high conflict divorce strategists who actually specialize in something called legal abuse, which is basically where a person's ex is using the legal system to wear them down and bleed them dry financially. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about what legal abuse can look like, and then get into some actual strategies of what you can do if you're dealing with one of these terrorists in family court and beyond. So legal abuse itself is really, there's 2 different ways that somebody does it. And before I even get into it, I should say that there's various names for legal abuse. You might also hear the term litigation abuse, paper abuse, because people file so many papers while they're making this happen. Judicial terrorism, or stalking through the court, which is my favorite. And again, there's two types. So, for example, when someone does not follow court orders, which was my situation with my ex, and I was in the legal system for about 10 years, the litigant, the person whose ex is not following orders, has to keep returning to court, has the burden to keep coming back to try to enforce those motions. And that can be so frustrating and cost lots of money unless you're representing yourself. And also the toll that it takes on you from having to take off work, the emotional toll it takes from not being able to just focus on parenting your kids is exhausting. The same thing is also it's called legal abuse, but the other type is what we call vexatious litigation or frivolous litigation, which is when an ex is filing frivolous motions, basically trying to change custody, reduce support without any basis. And so then you are forced to go back to the court, same thing, pay for an attorney, take time off work, and you can't focus on parenting. And this is the kind of thing that consumes your entire life. I know for me, every day I felt three general emotions, which many of our clients face as well. And that is rage. For me, it was more at the system than even at my ex, a sense of extraordinary injustice, meaning that the very system that I was turning to for relief was making things far worse because it was emboldening someone who wasn't following court orders to keep doing it because there were no consequences. And then the last emotion was a sense of despair because it felt like it was never going to get any better. It did. It took a long time. I always like to say that justice and karma were finally served beautifully. But that's a story for another day, because I really want to start talking about what you can do if you are dealing with someone like this in or close to the legal system. So one of the first things you should do is to learn about what it means, and how to guess that your ex might be someone who's likely to commit legal abuse. So in our first book, which came out in 2023, it's called Been There, Got Out: Toxic Relationships, High Conflict Divorce, and How to Stay Sane Under Insane Circumstances, we talk a lot about legal abuse. And in one of the chapters, there are several indicators that someone is likely to commit legal abuse. So I'll just share a couple with you now. One of them is someone whose ex has a personality disorder like narcissism or borderline and does not want the relationship to end. Someone like that, as well as an active addict, not someone in recovery, but someone who's actively using drugs or alcohol a bit too much, has impaired judgment. So they're often not in their right, sane mind to make good decisions. At the beginning of a separation or divorce, everybody's angry, but people like that aren't thinking about the long-term impact on the finances or the children. And so they're very hard to work with because they're not, like I said, they have impaired judgment. They're not even thinking what's best for themselves, not to mention the rest of the family. And then another thing is a sense of entitlement, especially when it comes to money. So I like to say that many of these people think what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine too. And so they'll often hide assets. They won't cooperate with the discovery process. And so knowing what to expect from one of these people in the family court system, wherever you are in the world, is really helpful because it braces you for a very different type of experience than what we call normal divorce. By the way, there's a man named Bill Eddy, who's the founder of the High Conflict Institute. He's a social worker, a lawyer. I don't have the book in front of me, but I highly recommend his book called Splitting, which describes what it's like to go through the legal system with someone with a personality disorder. So that's actually the book that helped get my partner's divorce over the finish line, and I wish I had found it myself sooner. All right. So once you recognize what's going on, another thing that's super important, and it's something that Chris and I teach more than anything with most of the people we work with, and that's something we call strategic communication. So that's where you are communicating with your ex in writing only. It's great if you can get a parenting app like OFW, which stands for Our Family Wizard, or some other kind of app. Even if you can't, even if you're just using email, that's okay, but know that it could be played with. So we like to have a parenting app if at all possible. By communicating only in writing, the goal is that you are always going to be writing to your ex, but for the invisible audience. We often say it's like you're under the court's microscope. So you need to make sure that you are always thinking about those people who might get involved with your case. I always say we want you to because most of our clients have children and custody is a huge issue. You want to write to your ex and you want to show yourself to be the most reasonable co-parent ever. But at the same time, you are always documenting your ex's patterns of behavior over time, the visible impact it has on each of your children and on your relationship with your children, because we know that post-separation, people lose power and control once they don't have the day-to-day to still get at you. So they're really limited to your money, the court, and your children. And I always say money and the courts go hand in hand and kids last the longest. So we always prepare for that. Strategic communication actually protects you from false claims of parental alienation, because we know that happens all the time in cases like these. It also helps turn hearsay into evidence. And really importantly, it helps turning the power dynamic around. And I know Katie is very into making you all emotionally bulletproof. Strategic communication is a big part of that. And then lastly, because I know we're so limited on time, putting together an airtight parallel parenting plan is going to be very, very important. So I just mentioned how we know, because they're so predictable, how these people behave through the family court process and thereafter. So we always plan that your kids are probably going to be dealing with some issues because of all the conflict. So having a parenting plan is going to be your constitution that you live by if you're American, or whatever you want to call it in other parts of the world, but it's the law. So both people are supposed to follow the rules, and it's something that's going to affect you throughout your kid's childhood. So often abusers will find all kinds of loopholes to weaponize a parenting plan. So it's important to think of a couple of things to make sure you get in there. The first thing that's really, really important is something called a therapy clause. Now, many legal decisions include choosing a therapist for a child. Most courts agree that kids' mental health is a big priority, but we often have found that our clients' exes don't want to cooperate and they don't want to be exposed, or they don't want to pay, whatever the reason is. So they'll make it very, very difficult. If you have a clause in your parenting plan that says that therapy will not be considered a major decision, but if either party or a child wants therapy, then it's a given. So that's really important, so that you're not going to be battling back and forth about a therapist, and you can save yourself thousands and thousands of dollars. And the other thing, just in general, to know about parenting plans and any agreements that you write is we don't always say if they violate, but we think when they violate, and they will violate, we need to make sure to have enforcement language, which basically means think of a deadline when something has to be done and a consequence. And of course, this is a much bigger topic. But hopefully, just scratching the surface and getting a couple of these tips and ideas has helped you today. If you ever need to get in touch, please reach out directly. My website is beentheregotout.com. You can always write to me at lisa@beentheregotout.com. And it's just my partner, Chris, and I, and we always answer. So thanks again. And thank you, Katie, so much for putting on this presentation.
Hello ladies, my sincere apologies for last night. I couldn't be there for the whole thing, which I'm extremely gutted about, if I'm being completely honest. We had a storm come over early evening, which resulted in me having a power cut. So I was sat here in the dark watching my battery run out by the minute. And yeah, it didn't last, so I'm really gutted, but I'm here now. I'm just going to you know, record what I, you know, wanted to speak about, you know, as part of the event, and you know, I'm hoping that it will, you know, help someone. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Lauren. I'm a single parent to a very sassy, nearly 4-year-old. I'm a full-time corporate professional, and I have spent probably the last 2.5 years rebuilding my life after a very abusive marriage, whilst still navigating post-separation abuse. And I think the main thing for me was, one thing that I've learned over the 2.5 years is that the person you divorce is never the person that you married. And I've heard that quite a lot on social media, and I've actually heard this a while ago, but I don't know if it's like, you know, timing and stuff where it's actually sort of, you know, becoming a thing now, but it's most definitely very true. And probably the person that I'm dealing with now is definitely not the person that I met however long ago, and definitely not the person that I married. But in fact, actually, this whole post-separation abuse, I didn't even know existed until I started, you know, putting my story on social media, which actually, in fact, was the start of this year. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know financial abuse was a thing. So, you know, I'm still learning new things, new phrases, and everything else as I'm going throughout, you know, this process myself. Very overwhelming, but yeah, it's one of those things. I think trying to navigate being a single parent, whilst also trying to navigate the behaviours and everything that your high conflict co-parent is actually putting you through. But before that, I just genuinely thought that it was a failing to cope type thing. I would find myself, my nervous system being completely like AWOL. And again, that was something else that I didn't, you know, I wasn't in tune with my nervous system. I didn't really know much about my nervous system until I left my marriage. I didn't realise the impact that it was having on my life, and I didn't actually realise that the things that would set my nervous system going was the exact feeling that I had during my marriage. You know, so like text messages, you know, when they'd come home from work and stuff, it would just immediately go into that shock mode of, you know, like, oh my god, the monster's home, you know, that kind of thing. That's the only kind of way that I can describe it, really. But you know, again, just going throughout this whole process, I'm starting to learn and understand my nervous system, to which I'm now able to, you know, control in a much better way. But when I started sharing my experience online, I did have thousands of women you know, start messaging me, you know, privately and on my comments and stuff as well, basically thanking me for being very honest and open and raw about my content. And I think that's the main thing really about social media, is that it's got makeup on all the time. You know, it's not real. You know, I think we can all be, you know, we can all agree to that. But I think with something like this, my aim is to basically be very open and honest about these situations, and be honest about, you know, how women get, you know, mums get blamed for everything, you know, when all we're trying to do is look after our babies. We're trying to set boundaries, we're trying to, you know, avoid all conflict, and we just want a happy life, and we just want a happy life not only for us but for our children as well. But you know, that aside, I don't want to pretend that I've got all my shit together, because I basically haven't. You know, I think half the time I just end up surviving on caffeine, my gym sessions, and trying not to lose my shit in my local M&S, I'm not gonna lie. So if you see me down the cookie aisle, then you know that I'm going through something, to which I am at the moment. I'm thick, you know, right in the middle of, you know, another court battle. I'm currently dealing with the police and everything else, you know, and we are 2.5 years. I've been through court, you know, once already for family court. I've been to court, you know, for non-molestation order. My divorce, thankfully, didn't go to court. However, there was a lot of financial pressure and stuff on me because I was the one with the assets. So, you know, he was the one that came at me, you know, obviously for my money. Basically, he put me under a lot of financial abuse. So yeah, you know, I'm deep in at the moment, but I'm a lot more educated now. I'm not going through all of them 3 things at the same time like I was 2 years ago, or at least the start of, you know, all of that happening 2 years ago. It now is just focusing on family court, you know, dealing with Cafcass and just making sure that I get the right outcome for my daughter, essentially. But I think, you know, the main thing for me, and obviously, you know, why I'm talking, is that I think that we tend to lose ourselves, I think, in this situation. You know, we've gone from being wife, if you were married, gone from being wife to, you know, not being happy in that relationship, to then being mum. Obviously we're always going to be mum, but it's actually who are you, who am I? You know, I'm now figuring that out myself as well. But one thing that kept me who I am was the gym. The gym helped me massively. I go to the gym, and as soon as I walk through the doors, it's quiet. Not inside the gym, obviously, because it's loud as anything, which is great. But my mind more so is silent. So it's almost like I'm bagging up all of my issues, all of my problems. I'm putting them into a bag and I'm leaving them at the door. You're not allowed to come in. That's how I look at it. And I go in, I do my session, whether it's, you know, weight training, whether it's Hyrox training, if you've heard of Hyrox, you know, or if I'm just doing some sort of high intensity workout. And I leave the gym feeling amazing. Exhausted but amazing. Like, you know, the gym sets all the endorphins and stuff going on, you know, in your brain, and that is obviously really helpful. So I go there, I let off all my steam, I leave all my problems at the door, and I just, you know, get cracking with what I need to do, and then feel much better for it after. But gym for me is not, it's not how I look aesthetically. Obviously the aesthetics are, you know, great, they're a plus. But the reason why I go to the gym is it gives me an outlet, it gives me a place, like I said before, where I can literally just leave all my problems and just go in there for an hour and a half and not think about anything, respond to messages, think about my anxiety, you know, and everything else. But gym has done a lot of things for me, you know, apart from that. So it's given me a structure during the chaos. So I know that as soon as my mind and my shoulders feel heavy, I go to the gym, or I go for a walk, or I go out for a run. It stopped me from drinking. So obviously at the start of my separation, obviously on the weekends I didn't have my daughter, I didn't know how to fill my time. So yes, I was going out binge drinking, which obviously I do not recommend. So don't do that. I've obviously stopped, you know, a lot of the drinking and stuff now. Probably drink like twice a year, if I'm being completely honest with you. It just completely messes with your brain and, you know, your thinking and everything else that you absolutely need during this process. It's improved my relationship with food. They say food is fuel. It is obviously not for the workouts and stuff, but for your brain. You need to make sure that you are fueling your brain with, you know, good energy, a good diet, you know, so then you can have clear thinking and stuff, like, again, throughout this process. It's helped me regulate my nervous system. It's given me some goals to work towards, so like fitness goals and stuff as well. And I'm not saying for you guys, you know, to have some wild fitness goals that are, you know, completely not unrealistic, but, you know, way out of my depth. Don't do that. I do that for myself because I love a challenge and I love pushing myself. But, you know, even just small goals like making sure that you hit your 10,000 steps a day, or making sure that you have 2 litres of water, because, you know, that helps the mind. It really does. I cannot emphasize that anymore. It really does help. It's given me my confidence back, and it's also helped with my mental health as well, because I got myself in a very dark hole because I had, you know, everything simultaneously going on at the same time. But again, obviously that wasn't any fault of mine. That was, you know, the high conflict co-parent, as I call him, just, you know, trying to wear me down basically. So yeah, as I mentioned before, I think, you know, the importance of gym for me was to continue remembering who I am as a person. And gym might not be for you. If you are a gym goer, then great, continue doing that, because, you know, that helps. If you're not and you want to get into it, then 100% get into it, even if you start off small, you know, building it up. So what I mean by that, starting off small, going out, you know, for walks and stuff daily, join a gym, you know. There's loads of YouTube videos and stuff online as well that you can have a look, you know, for the movements and types of things and stuff. I've got myself a coach, so she programs me, you know, on a weekly basis and stuff, like what to do, obviously, which then ties into my end goals and stuff as well. If you're not a gym or fitness person, I would say to try and do something for you. So if you've got any other hobbies, if you, I know, like reading, I don't know, maybe, you know, join a local book club, or you know, online book club. I know that a lot of stuff is, you know, online and stuff as well. I don't know, if you know, go out for dinner with friends, go out for dinner yourself, go on, you know, on a solo date, go to the cinema, you know, just do something, fill your time when you don't have your children. Don't sit at home lonely, you know, because you just get so lost in your thoughts that you will end up overthinking things and making yourself worse. So just try and find something, you know, as part of your rebuilding process that you enjoy doing for you, like do it for you. And, you know, you need to start rebuilding yourself as who you are and who you want to be, not mum, but yourself. And that's one thing that, you know, I again have learnt throughout this process, is that I'm always mum, but who am I outside of being mum? And at the moment I'm just enjoying that process now, you know, and I'm in a much happier place being single, with no men around, you know, telling me what I can and can't do, telling me what I can and can't wear, you know, telling me that I can't go to the gym because I spend too much time at the gym, you know, and you know, basically because it was their insecurities. So if I could leave you with 2 things today, then it will be this. And I want you to remember these things. I want you to write them down. I want you to keep them on a post-it, keep them on the fridge, keep them on your notes on your phone, and refer back to them. One is being, firstly, remember who the fuck you are. You need to remember who you are. You need to remember that you can do anything. You can do anything in your life. Any hard things you can do. You can accomplish yourself. So remember who the fuck you are, not who someone reduced you to, not who trauma made you become, and not who you had to be to survive. Remember that. Remember who the fuck you are. Who you are, no one else. Second thing, your life starts now. It doesn't start when the courts end. It doesn't start when everything feels perfect, and it doesn't start when all the stress disappears. It starts now. You live your life now. You live your life now how you want to live it. You be the person that you want to be, and just go for it. Just go for life as you are. Do life, being you, and that's it. Because at the end of the day, you still deserve peace. You still deserve happiness, and you deserve a life that feels like yours and nobody else's. Thank you.